He was already dreaming of a future filled with happy days and nights together. But fate had a cruel twist. His secret, groundbreaking magical discoveries were snatched by his boss. That theft cost him his promotion. Seizing the chaos, nobles grabbed his and sold her off as a plaything for some high-ranking creep. Blinded by rage and agony, he tried to fight back. But he was a researcher, not a warrior. He was crushed and tossed into a cell. Days later, he learned the truth. His love had ended her own life. Broken and drowning in grief, he turned to the one thing he had left, forbidden magic. With that forbidden power, he butchered the gods and broke out. He stormed the castle of the men who destroyed him, forcing them to beg. They offered gold, titles, even other women. But a man who's lost his soul doesn't want bribes. He only wanted blood, pure revenge. He ended them without blinking. Then he raised a golem army to fight the corrupt and twisted noble system. But the world found a hero, a boy chosen by the goddess. They branded him the Demon King, the literal source of all evil. He faced the hero's army in a brutal, long war. In the end, only the hero was left standing. The mage just couldn't beat that divine power. But he spat out one last curse, before tainting the hero and every single one of his descendants. Now, centuries later, that dark shadow still hasn't faded. The famous hero's bloodline is finally about to go extinct. And the legendary Demon King, he's just been reborn, born right back into the family he cursed. But his curse worked too well. The family is broken, facing bankruptcy, about to lose everything. The real issue, he needs his old power back to finish off the nobles once and for all. He woke up screaming, and Hans the butler rushed in. After a quick talk, the boy slowly realized where he was and who he'd become. He couldn't believe that the simple curse he cast 500 years ago had actually wiped out that man's entire legacy. And now, even he was trapped by his own magic. After skimming some books, it all made sense. He realized he was the one to blame for losing it all. But he had a feeling the curse itself was the reason he was born into this bloodline. Now he had a shot to rebuild his army and finally wipe out those corrupt nobles. But then, loud shouting erupted from outside. The butlers were all visibly shaken. Outside stood a short, 4'1" merchant named Darren, demanding to speak with the young master this very second. He was there to collect a debt. Our lead just laughed, thinking the curse worked perfectly if his target was this broke. Worse, 30,000 pesos, money borrowed to develop a mine that was never paid back. Hans tried to explain that the master needed rest because he was sick, but the merchant wasn't having it. He insisted on hearing the truth directly from the young master himself. Right then, everyone went silent. The man sneered, saying it looked like they couldn't afford to pay him back a single cent. Right now, 30,000 pesos is a lot of money, so he decided to make them a special offer. All they had to do was hand over the giant living in their house. It is second-hand, so it probably isn't even worth the full 30,000. He claimed it was a steal, but right then, a soldier shouted that the deal was absolutely impossible. They only have 3 giants in the whole place. They can't protect the territory if they lose even one of them. As they kept bickering, our protagonist watched from above, laughing. He thought the idiot should have seen this coming from a mile away. The merchant told them to chill out, admitting he'd love to take the giant and the whole mansion for himself. But he didn't want the bad press of being the guy who stole the great hero's home. So instead, he pointed his finger and demanded whatever he was looking at. The angry soldier barked that he already said the giant was off the table. But the merchant wasn't talking about the giant. He was pointing at the magic tower right behind him. Everyone stopped to consider it. It was a way better deal than the giant since nobody even uses that tower anymore. That place is basically useless now. Right then the protagonist looked at the tower and realized what was happening. After all, that was his magic tower. 500 years ago, his home was far from the Demon King's fortress. That tower was the very place where he used to live with Katerina. The place was a total wreck, old and falling apart. But it was still home. And right now, Simon was absolutely fuming over how things were playing out. That merchant was clearly eyeing the demon tower like it was a prize. They were almost ready to sign. Right then, Simon shows up looking like absolute trash. The merchant asks if he is feeling better and says negotiations are going great. Now, they just need one signature so his company can officially take over the management of the demon tower and start work. But Simon snaps, asking if talking is all they can do. He calls him out for not even knowing what this place is and asks how he dares trying to seize control. Nobody could figure out why the kid was so angry. Simon explains that after grabbing the land at the center of their territory, they plan to expand their power by pretending they're just developing the local area. They want to open it up for tourism, but he knows better. Honestly, he absolutely hates people like that. The merchant was sweating now, running out of options. He realized he had to act tough and give an even bolder response. He argues the Lacan family cannot pay their debts. That is why they were being nice with this specific proposal in the first place. His company has to get that money back somehow. Simon fires back, saying he never once said they would not pay the debt. He declares he will pay everything back, including the interest, in 10 days. He tells him to get lost. Man, the kid is seriously ticked off. With no other choice, they all leave. The merchant mutters that he will see if the boy can actually deliver. Once things settle, a soldier says he cannot believe what Simon just told the merchant. The vassals were truly stunned. His declaration was a total shock. Seeing him protect his family honor and his ancestors' achievements was honestly incredible. But Simon just wants to know what they are talking about. The guy says he did not realize he cared so much about family pride. But Simon did not care about that at all. Right then, Hans asks how he expects to pay everything back. That amount of money could buy a whole giant right now. They do not have any collateral left to borrow more money. He asks if there are any other solutions, but the kid ignores him. He just walks away, saying he will handle the debt his own way, while they just stand there and watch. As time goes on, Simon starts learning everything about the place, but he is clearly not satisfied with any of it. Wondering out loud, is this not the family that killed the Demon King? If so, why? There is nothing left here. Did people steal everything? They would not really do that, would they? It all makes sense if you look at the family tree. After the hero Lacan defeated the Demon King, he was granted the title of Marquis over a huge territory in the south of Livia. Later, Duke Baroque started a rebellion against the Kingdom of Livia, and Viscount Lacan fought him because he could not stand the injustice. But since the young man was under the Demon King's curse, he suffered a crushing defeat. His title was taken away, and he was exiled to the frontier, eventually dying because of his age. Looking at the mess, Simon realizes Lacan never even wanted to set up his territory there. Their money situation is so bad it is a miracle they lasted 500 years. He asks how it got this bad. Haxton says it was because his ancestors tried to restore their former glory. They would do anything to make a comeback, even using all the wealth and authority they still had. They desperately wanted to restore the family reputation. However, because of the curse passed down through the bloodline, all their hard work was for nothing. That is how the home of the legendary hero who saved the world met its final ruin. He is not sure if Simon remembers, but the truth is, the reason he was knocked out for over half a month after that giant incident was because he, working so hard to restore the family reputation. He wanted to prove he was a real hero and pushed himself past his limits. After hearing that, Simon just gets up from his chair. He says that given the current situation, there is really not much they can do right now. The old man apologizes for everything, but insists they must find a way. He is even willing to give his life to pay the full debt. But Simon says that will not be necessary, because he just thought of a solution. They just have to pay back the cash one way or another, right? Man, you just know this is not going to end well. A little while later, the vassals were in total shock. The kid had actually taken the statue of the hero. Hans was losing it, since the statue was there just yesterday. He was frantic, wondering where it could have gone. But that is not the biggest problem. He needs to find the Lord immediately. Right at that moment, a soldier runs up saying there is a major problem. The Lord had slipped away while the security was wide open. Hans catches on to the situation immediately. I wonder what kind of plan the Lord has in mind. Meanwhile, the kid was lugging that statue on a cart. The driver of the carriage wanted to ask something. Simon asks who he is. The guy is shocked. He actually forgot. Apparently his name is Phillips, and he serves as his guardian knight. He asks if they are really selling the statue, and Simon says yes. Melting it down should bring in some serious cash. Phillips tries explaining it as an important historical piece, but Simon won't hear it. He just asks if 5 centuries of history are going to fill his stomach. The knight points out that selling just one statue won't clear his massive debts. Simon just says that is only the first step of his plan. He's actually going to gamble the statue money to win 30,000. Man, what an absolute moron. Naturally, the soldier is completely stunned by this. He asks what they'll do if they end up losing everything. If he knew this was the plan, he never would have come along. They should head back and beg for forgiveness while they still can. No turning back for them now. Simon explains that going back means explaining why he took the statue of their great predecessor in the first place. If he admits he needed gambling money, they will definitely never forgive him for the theft. Plus, he is certain he would be permanently exiled from the family if he showed up now. They won't do anything to him since he's the Lord. But on the other hand, Phillips would be the only one cast out. By then, the kid had already realized exactly what was going on. There is really no other choice but to keep moving forward. Simon tells him to consider his options. He can either end up as a penniless bum or a hero who finally brings honor back to this blessed house. Telling the poor guy to choose already, with no other options. They have to keep pushing on. The soldier heard his personality changed after the coma. But this guy is basically the literal devil in the flesh. And a little while later, the two were standing near a boat and then, after finally boarding, they head toward their destination. A bit later, they arrive in a port city and manage to sell that damn statue. Looking around, Simon notes how much the place has changed. Phillips asks if he's been here before. Simon says a bit, though it looked different back then. It used to be a deserted island that was impossible to access because of a monster. Anyway, 500 years have passed. Time has flown by. and going there was a great idea. Soon, the two are walking through the busy city streets, checking out everything around them. Man, it is finally time to gamble. I can already tell this is going to end badly. Simon wants to head inside immediately, but the boy asks him to wait a second. He needs a breather, so he asks if Simon knows a way to win every single game. The kid confidently claims that when it comes to gambling, your attitude is the only thing that matters. But just a few minutes later, the kid had lost basically everything. The guy across the table asks if he wants to keep going, since he clearly has no cash left and should probably quit. However, our protagonist had already made up his mind, ordering Phillips to bet the rest of their funds. There was really no other choice but to do it. Simon is full of confidence, telling him to just bet it all at once. Phillips thinks the family is officially doomed now. The guy on the other side says he must be nervous about the game, but Simon says that being anxious won't change the outcome. At that, the man suggests that they should just go ahead and show their cards right now, completely confident in his hand. He already believes he has won, but Simon tells him to wait. He's finally showing his hand. The guy's stunned he lost, but Simon just shrugs and calls it a good game. Trust me, this dude was definitely not a good sport. He starts whining, claiming Simon must have used some cheap trick. Simon tells him he knows exactly who's backing him up though. He's basically reading all of his cards aloud. Of course he knew. There was literally no way he couldn't. Every single spectator nearby was one of his goons, but he kept falling for it because he needed to touch every last card. Naturally, he left a tiny bit of mana in them that let him control the deck using his own marks. That's the win. Now, Simon tells him to just admit he lost. Instead, the guy loses it and sends a mob after the kid. Simon just sighs idiots haven't changed a bit in 500 years. He doesn't have his old mana levels anymore, but that's not an issue against these weak. Just then, a group of mercenaries charges at him and Philip doesn't waste a second before drawing his sword. He demands to know how they dare touch the Lacan heir. Looks like he's actually ready to lay his life down. Right then, the dude literally waits his pants, crying. He realized he messed up big time, but apologies won't save him now. Meanwhile, our hero is just watching it all unfold. From a distance, moments later, they just walk away casually, carrying a huge pile of money. Looking back at it, Simeon realized he thought the kid was just a porter, but he's actually talented. Today's haul was good, but they probably can't show their faces in casinos for a while. Changing the subject, he asks if there's any other way to get paid. Philip mentions the giant arena. Apparently, giants still fight each other for sport these days. The payout depends on the match, but if he performs well, he could walk away with a fortune. Simon gets lost in thought. The kid tells him to just trust his lead since he was a top student at the giant military academy. So our hero agrees to go check the place out. But just then, the two of them hear a loud noise coming from across the street. Two soldiers were confronting a child. Watching this, Simon thinks that even though the world changed, some things stay the same. Some things just rot and get worse over time. But obviously he's not just going to stand by and watch. Just as he's about to step in and face the soldiers, someone else steps up. A girl asks if they're royal guards and why they aren't out protecting citizens like they should. Instead, they're doing the exact opposite, using violence on children. Looking at her, our main character is instantly caught off guard. This woman looks just like his wife. The soldier tells her that even if she were royalty, resisting is totally pointless. She asks him if he really thinks caging people like cattle is okay. Living in a place like that just isn't right. These are innocent kids who lost their homes and their families. If they were found guilty, she would be the first one to pay. Remember, before being a princess of the vulgar kingdom, she is just a refugee seeking asylum. Meanwhile, the heated argument just keeps going. Philip notices things are turning ugly and pivots. The protagonist cuts in, asking if he knows exactly who that mysterious woman really is. He explains she is legendary and vulgar because she simply does not care what the arrogant nobles think. He is not sure why, but rumors say their kingdom was destroyed. He never expected to run into Princess Reina in a dump like this. Simon is shocked to hear that name. He stares at her, thinking that no matter how hard he looks, that is definitely Did she reincarnate, just like he did? It seems impossible for her to have the exact same face. The girl starts helping the kid, but the soldier barks that he cannot allow her to do that. Otherwise, they will be punished. Watching the scene unfold, Simon suddenly charges the guard. As he lands a punch, he thinks that even as time passes, some things like this filth never change. The girl shouts for him to stop, and the boy finally snaps out of it and comes to his senses. But the other guard was not about to let that slide, so Philip steps in to help. He asks if their imperial law is really worth more than life. The soldier realized he had no choice but to back down. They leave without wasting any time. Sivan rushes toward the girl, calling her Katerina and checking to see if she is okay, asking if she was hurt. Of course, the poor girl is completely lost and confused, asking who he is. Simon wonders if she recognizes him, but she tells him to stay back and keep his distance. She asks what makes him any different from the cruel guards who are harassing those poor children. More to the point, He has clearly mistaken her for someone else. She tells him her name is not Katerina. Just then, Philip arrives to clear up the whole mess. Simon just stands there in silence, thinking about how he suffered alone for so long, knowing she would never return to him. Yet he caused all this chaos just because the two of them happen to look identical. An old man suddenly appears, asking what on earth the princess is doing out there. He wonders if she was picking fights with the city guards once again. Then he turns his attention to the stranger standing right next to her. Tensions are high, so I would appreciate it if you stayed away from the princess for now. Simon tells them that all of this is ridiculous. Even if he got the situation wrong, he still stepped up to help. He did not do it for a reward, but a simple thank you would be nice, right? The kid just turns away like a total brat, and the old man tells them to just drop it. A little later, they arrive at the massive arena of giants. Another one of the thousands of mechs is underway. Our hero and Philip watch the action from a distance, just as the winner is announced in the center of the arena. Philip brags about winning the bet. If they keep this up, their debts will vanish, and they will finally be rich. Simon thinks this whole game is incredibly easy. These giants are powered by golem magic, and he can easily predict the winner just by watching how their mana flows through them. Now, the next match was finally ready to start, and man, that giant looks totally different. Simon watches the whole thing silently. As the other gate slowly swings open, a smaller giant appears. Unbelievably, our protagonist tells Philip to bet everything on him. Philip clearly did not understand a thing. He mentioned seeing something different about that massive giant, and sure enough, my friend, somehow, the smaller giant was hanging tough in the fight. Incredibly, he started counterattacking. The axe giant admitted he thought the kid was a total amateur, but now he sees some real talent. But unfortunately, it is still not enough. Watching from afar, Philip was sure that giant was going to lose. But Simon thinks the other giant has the upper hand with mana. He really wondered what they were thinking, since they weren't using any mana at all. The giant was already flat on the ground, and right before taking a hit, he finally powers up his mana. At that exact moment, an explosion occurs, and the giant just vanished. That big monster had jumped. He summons a magic circle and fires a flame blast at the giant. He was finally in the lead, and shortly after that he was finally declared the winner. Philip claims he believed in him all along. Surprised, Simon asks if they actually used magic. No way that is possible. Philip says the pilot is named Karen, and she is likely a runic knight. Giants using magic is rare, but they must be hiding their power to raise the stakes. Regardless, that doesn't matter. The theory of channeling magic through weapons is his own creation. Even after all this time, no one else has been able to replicate his unique method. After all, the whole process ends with the use of dark magic. Later on, Simon was still at the giant arena. Philip wouldn't stop talking, so Simon told him he was busy thinking and needed some peace. Nearby, an old man tells a girl she can still change her mind. There is no way she can win a fight with a giant in that condition. Unbelievably, the person standing over there was actually Princess Reina, and the two of them just keep on watching. The old man asks why she agreed to this duel. If she loses, she has to marry the count. That is not a decision to take lightly. She says she chose carefully. If she had not accepted, many refugees would have faced starvation or even been killed. In other words, this was the only way to save everyone. As they keep arguing, the old man points out that a broken giant obviously won't be enough to win. You want to protect those refugees so badly, but you don't even value your own life. Right after that, Simon loses interest and says they should just head out. While walking through the area, he notes she is definitely not Katerina, so there is no need to get involved. Right. But then the old man says she is just selling herself short. The count stops at nothing to get what he wants, and has even threatened the refugees many times. Without the princess, the refugees will be totally helpless. Unless that mana stone is completely replaced, the giant won't even be operational. She should definitely listen to what the old man says. She says she knows that, but even so, she can't just give up. Because if she loses without even trying, no one will be left to defend the weak. Suddenly Simon interrupts, asking to take a look at the giant. He mentions that the mana stone inside might actually still be usable. Right away, the old man tells him to stay far away from the princess. It all seems way too convenient. They are probably assassins sent by the count. Hearing that Simon was about to lose it, Philip steps in, announcing he is the 15th descendant of the Lacan family. Still, the old man was suspicious, asking how they could really be trusted. But Princess Reina tells the old man to step aside and apologizes. She is sorry about their last encounter. Apparently he overheard everything and, even though it is embarrassing to admit, they are out of options. So, she would like to ask a favor, and he immediately gets ready for it too. He says he will make sure to show off his skills. Our boy finally climbs into the giant. The redhead warns that giants can't be repaired by just anyone. She thinks he will probably just damage it more. But then Philip shows up, asking if they want to make a bet. He wagers 10,000 pesos that his young lord fixes the giant easily. The three of them stay there bickering, and before long, Soon after, Princess Reina asks if she could know something. She looks straight at our protagonist. She asks if that kind of tool is used to repair giants. Right then, the protagonist just slices his own hand. Seriously, nobody had a clue what was happening. The kid tells them to just keep watching and invoke his blessed magic. At that moment, a magic circle appears on the armor. A flashback shows Simon in his past asking his golem if it really fell in a place like this. These immortal beings drag enemies to hell, and he orders it to answer his call once more. At that exact moment, all the golems immediately rise up. Now, we are back in the present. That giant starts working again. Nobody can believe it. Reina is stunned. He could revive a dead magic crystal. She has never heard of such magic existing in her entire life. The whole world would probably be astonished by an event like this. The kid hops down like it is nothing. The redhead is still suspicious, claiming it is a trick or maybe even black magic. Hearing that, Philip snaps. He asks if she is implying the Lacan heir was using black magic. With no other choice, our boy says he will explain because the truth is, it is a secret technique passed down by the Lacan family and hidden for nearly 100 years. Wow, he really went with that. The redhead asks why a family of swordsmen has a secret magic technique, but Reina says that is not important now. Even if it were black magic, he saved many lives. She does not know how she can reward him, but she thanks him and apologizes for it before. The girl says he got hurt because of her, so she has to tend his wounds. Our shameless hero tells her she can get comfortable. Suddenly someone else appears, saying he cannot find a certain knight named Andre anywhere. Cut to a new scene. A soldier tells a blonde guy the princess is out of knights, and it seems they somehow repaired the giant. The blondie asks if he did not swear the giant could not be activated. The poor guy on the floor begs for forgiveness, but he had already made a massive mistake, and he is definitely getting fired. Then the blonde guy asks if there were any other variables. After all, there is no way Princess Reina will not end up being completely his. Soon, everyone will see what the master of monarchy is really like. Wait, what? The scene shifts back to the giant arena and the commentators are introducing the fight between Princess Reina and the Count. That guy's giant is a beast totally covered in armor, but on the other hand, the other giants still hadn't shown up. Everyone in the stands is getting restless, screaming for their money back. The Count is acting smug, thinking he's already won. Suddenly a flashback shows everyone panicking because they no longer had a pilot. They'd been totally betrayed at a crucial moment like this. Simon asks if she is forced to marry the Count if she cannot compete in the match. And if that is the case, he thinks he might be able to help her too. Reina asks how he could do that. Philip says it is not that he does not trust him, but he definitely remembers the disaster from the last time he tried to control a giant robot. But the kid tells him not to worry about it. Back in the present, the armored giant finally appears. The spoiled, furious Count asks if he did not say there were no more pilots left on the princess's side, and the poor guy next to him says he was sure of it, which means she probably hired someone else. But he is sure that person does not realize how important this battle really is. It is almost unbelievable that someone so desperate would actually dare to stand by the princess in his territory. Up in the stands, the old man and princess are relieved they arrived in time. The giant looks way better now, but they are still facing the champion of Lama territory. Simon says everything is going to be fine. Wait, I totally thought he was the one who was going to pilot the giant. The hero says that even though that man usually seems a little slow, he is actually very skilled. It is Phillips who is piloting the machine. The battle is about to start. The crowd in the stands is wondering if they are really planning to go into battle with a giant robot that looks like that. Everyone starts making fun of that heap of junk. The enemy giant says he is impressed he did not run away. He needs to know what this match is worth. He has no intention of going easy, and without wasting a second, he charges at the other giant. Phillips thinks that his power really lives up to his massive size, but the kid somehow manages to block the blow. Being big and strong does not mean you are a good fighter. At that very moment, the golden giant tries to launch a heavy attack, but Phillips manages to dodge it, thinking that this is getting really dangerous. Meanwhile, the battle keeps raging on. The pilot on the other side seems to be under a lot of stress after all. Phillips just will not stop dodging those attacks. Right, the old man says they will not win if he just runs forever. Siba just watches silently, thinking that since the boy already faced a bunch of knights, there is no doubt that he is a talented fighter. He will have to teach him better later. Philip thinks that guy never gets tired of attacking. If that is the case, then there really is no other way, right? Then, in desperation, he lands an attack on the golden giant, but it does not do much, and it only made the guy even more nervous as he raises his weapon. The commentator says it is the champion's blessed move. An explosion rocks the entire arena, and once the dust finally settles, the golden giant says that it is unbelievable. He actually managed to dodge the attack. Philip says he has no choice but to win now, since the protagonist is counting on him. Summoning his power, he says he will make him regret, forcing him to show this for the rest of his life. Now the guy is at full power. He is at full strength now, and the enemy pilot is shocked by such a massive aura from someone. So young it seems he has finally found a worthy opponent. But then, the Count pops up on his screen immediately, and honestly the guy didn't look happy about the match dragging on like this. Left with no choice, he's got to activate everything all at once. Now things are getting serious. The Golden Giant charges him, ready to deliver a massive blow. He swings, but in that exact moment, he gets hit with a Count. The guy couldn't believe that speed or aura. He wondered if it was even possible. Then he remembers that person who vanished 3 years ago. The total invincible legend of the giant arena. He's the one known as the Phantom of the Black Knight. And just like that, the guy is finally defeated. The stands erupt as the golden armored guy admits he never expected to see the Black Knight again. Phillips asks if he knows the guy, and the warrior says they actually fought back in the Royal Arena 3 years ago. Phillips asks if he knows him. The warrior says they fought in the Royal Arena 3 years ago. He vanished after setting an insane record, so why is he in a place like this now? He replies that as the Black Knight, helping people in need is just what he does. Anyway, he wants his identity kept a total secret. The guy agrees, since he is probably getting fired anyway, right? Up in the stands, everyone was celebrating because they had finally won. Simon watches everything unfold and thinks that this is probably enough for now. Now he can finally leave without feeling guilty. Looking at the betting board, he figures this world makes it pretty easy to get rich. It seems like an easy world to make money in. A short time later, our hero was finally leaving the city. Raina says she really doesn't know how to thank him for everything he did. Simon tells her not to worry because he just wanted to help however he could. But the girl says it must have been so hard to help them like that, and she wishes she could show her gratitude properly. For Simon, everything is fine already, because if they hadn't found her, they wouldn't have made so much money. Honestly, I wanted to stay there longer, but since they caused such a huge scene, I think it's better to leave before your identity is revealed. The two of them keep on talking. As they talk, Simon tells her that she should probably get out of this area as soon as possible. If that guy is willing to go that far, he definitely won't give up on her he is probably planning his next move. The old man agrees they should leave while Count Monarch has no real reason to keep them around. The old man says he is right and they need to leave while Count Monarch has no reason to keep them. There, Simon says he knows she is worried about the refugees, but even if she stays, there is nothing she can do to help all of them. In other words, to have a better future. He thinks it would be wise for her to take a step back for now. But then the girl, interrupting our hero, she says she already knows that. This is tough, but even if she seems stubborn right now, she can't leave her people without anyone to rely on. Even if it's just a little bit, she wants to do whatever she can. Hearing that, Simon says he understands. They say their goodbyes and finally leave on the boat, but there are extra people aboard. Phillips asks why they brought those idiots along. So Simon asks how they will use the giants without anyone to repair them. Phillips then questions why the protagonist couldn't just handle the repairs himself. The two of them keep arguing. Sometime later, they finally arrive at the Lacuna State. That merchant from before was inside the house, grabbing every single thing he could carry. He says he believed the protagonist would pay that huge debt, but he still betrayed his people and ran off in the middle of the night. Right then, Phillips appears, introducing himself. He says he is the young lord's own escort knight. The guy just stares at the brat and then he asks where the protagonist is. He says he was there to deliver something to him. Opening the chest, the boy shows a massive pile of gold. The merchant can't believe they got that much in under a week. Now he won't be able to take the territory. Phillips makes an excuse, asking if they can't see Lord Durham is busy. He orders them to load the money and leave before wasting another second of his time. However, the man says there is no rush, because he'll wait to meet the protagonist in person. Right then, Phillips gives it. He smiles and pulls out a letter, saying it is a direct message from the young master to him. Since the debt is paid, he is just a trespasser now. He'd better get ready if he plans on hanging around and causing trouble. Debt is cleared, so he is officially he should watch himself if he wants to make a scene. Under Article 36 of the Imperial Laws, any noble can deal with an intruder who invades their land or a building they manage. They have the right to execute invaders. Man, the kid thought of everything. Unless he wants to die, he should pack up and leave immediately. And just like that, the message is sent. So, Lord Durham does not waste a second. He bolts from the estate immediately. Now that things are settled, Philip notes that at least everyone knows the young master. Actually pretty terrifying. Everyone can finally breathe easy now that they finally managed to pay off the debt. But actually, the exact opposite was happening. Everyone swarms Philip, demanding to know where the blessed statue of Master Lacan ended up. They all crowd around Philip, asking about the statue. Then a soldier asks where the young master went. He is worried that something terrible might have happened to her. The kid tries to speak, but everyone just talks over him. We cut to the Demon King Tower. Our guy walks inside and sees the place is a total wreck. I mean, obviously nobody was going to keep this place clean, right? He flips the lights on and figures he should be glad it is still standing after 500 years. He looks at the stairs and remembers being there with his wife. It is the one place left filled with memories of her. Whatever happens, He is going to protect this spot. That is all that matters now. Leaning back against the wall, he just hopes the device still actually works. Right then, a bunch of lights flicker on. A massive door swings open. The kid is relieved that everything is working fine. Looking around, he wonders if he should finally take back what belongs to him. To beat a curse, you need mana stronger than the curse itself. He heard that ages ago, but right now, it is his only play. Channeling his power, he opens a door. It has been 5 centuries since he was last inside this room, and he did well protecting his home. He stares at a jar in front of him. Simon says it has been a long time. He calls it the Demon Harith. Suddenly, we see a flashback from when he was the Demon King. It looks like he was in the middle of an invasion. Staring at a creature, he asks if it is the one in charge. The girl mentions she heard he had toppled several fortresses. She really expected him to be an old man. But she heard he took down fortresses and honestly expected him to be an old man. Instead, he is surprisingly young, which really just disappoints her. Still, it is pretty impressive for a human. Since she is moved by how hard he worked, she offers a bit of mercy. He can ask anything he wants. It is only fair to satisfy his curiosity before he is killed. Simon just thinks she is the chattiest high-ranking demon he has ever met. He asks if demons get ranked higher just for talking a lot. That makes her furious, and she claims his arrogance comes from beating a few low-level weaklings. She promises him these demons are on a whole different level than anything he has ever faced. But Simon tells her not to worry. He is not desperate enough to show up to a battlefield completely alone yet. Check out the size of that massive golem. She is totally stunned, and immediately, the battle kicks off. In the center of the hall, the fight goes all out. The two of them just keep watching, and they stare each other down. Finally, they go at it one-on-one. Soon enough, our hero claims the victory. She asks what he plans to do after turning her into energy, or if he is actually planning to change the entire world. Simon tells her she does not need to know. Either way, she is being reborn as demonic energy. We flash back to the present, where Simon remembers that taking her down was way harder than anyone else. If you absorb powerful demonic energy the wrong way, things can get ugly. He has seen people turn into horrifying monsters from it. He could not absorb it back then because it was too risky. By the time he mastered the safe method, he was already at the 9th circle and did not need it. Once he hit the 9th circle, he did not need that power. Honestly, he never expected to be using it now, 500 years later. He never thought he would need this 5 centuries later. After swallowing the stone, the kid starts feeling the effects hit him immediately. Right at that moment, it looks like he is having a hallucination. He is hallucinating. Looking around, the kid figures he is in the mind realm. Apparently, the demonic energy did not just swallow him whole. So there must be something else here as well, right? Someone is standing in the smoke. It is that same demon from before. She does not recognize him and asks who he is. He realizes his current body will struggle to hold all this in. 5 centuries later, and she still has massive demonic energy. 500 years later, and her power is still massive. He tells her he is just here to borrow some of it. Right then, it looks like the girl finally recognizes him. She grabs him by the throat and tells him he is completely helpless now. Honestly, she barely recognized him. Changing the subject, she asks why he is even here. He explains he already told her he needs her power, but she wonders if that is even possible for him, especially with that fragile body. The enemy who locked her away for centuries has returned in a pitiful state, begging for her strength. She asks if he finds that funny, too. Simon can barely take it, thinking she might snap his neck at any second. Finally, he pulls his hand away from the girl's arm and speaks. He asks if she is okay with that. After all, he came here with a pretty solid proposal. He asks if she is really just going to kill him. He figures she probably wants his body as a source of magic, so she likely won't kill him yet. Then, the woman surprisingly lets the boy go. She says she will at least respect his courage, but wonders if he can handle her power with his circle destroyed. Simon says if he fails, she can just take over his body. There are no downsides for her, especially since she was trapped for centuries. Accepting the deal, she casts her magic on the protagonist, saying she will play with him since she has been locked away for so long. She warns him he better endure this. Watching this, Simon wonders if this is actually that famous mind control. But the poor guy has no time to think. The demon asks where his pride went. Bluffing is his only move, so he asks if she thinks he still has the same mana and magic circle from the past. Even with his power destroyed, the kid says something surprising. He would never become a victim of mind control at all. At that moment, our hero disappears. Suddenly, the tables turn, and the girl is the victim. She was about to be consumed by Simon, but the magic suddenly breaks. She says she knew this would happen, but it is still impressive that he actually reached the 9th circle. It is still amazing that he reached the 9th circle. Simon asks if he needs to show her anything else. She replies that even though he reached that level, he still could not change the world. However, he says it isn't over yet, because he will find a way to finish the job. Hearing that, the girl smiles. She asks if he can really reach the 9th circle again with a body like that. He is definitely confident, but even if she lived inside him, the 6th or 7th circle would be his absolute limit for casting spells. He is certainly confident, but even if she stayed in his body, the 6th or 7th circle would be his limit. Either way, she will let him do whatever he wants with the world. So she enters our hero's body, telling him he'd better work hard so he doesn't disappoint her. Finally, the scene returns to the mansion, and the kid really did not seem to be doing well. The kid was clearly struggling. Summoning his mana, he realizes she is only at the 3rd circle, but a solid foundation is enough for now. If the demon Horus wanted to, she could have taken control of him a long time ago. He has to live up to her expectations. Since he knows the theory behind every circle, reaching the 9th circle should be easy. However, gathering enough demonic energy will take a lot of time. Because of that, he needs to start taking action immediately. Opening another door, he finds an old magic circle that has been resting for 500 years. He says it is time to work again, and placing his hand on the circle, the magic activates as Simon says. Now they will have to help him with his plan next. The scene cuts back to the city of Man, I have to be honest, that count did not look good. He says that no matter how much he thinks about it, something feels very wrong. Even if the giants had a 5-fold difference in power, losing like that was simply unacceptable. He was probably working with Reina in secret, but the guy swears he would never do that. He claims he pledged his loyalty a long time ago. He was likely working with Reina in secret, but the man denies it, swearing his loyalty. However, that simply is not enough to convince the count. He asks if that is all he has to say. Having no other choice, the young man says he knows something about the pilot of the other giant. With no other choice, the guy says he knows the other giant pilot. 3 years ago he fought him in the Imperial Arena. He was a knight famous for being undefeated. They left shortly after, so nobody knows his identity. The count says he understands and moves forward. With everything explained, the count decides the man is no longer useful and slashes the poor bastard with his knife. The guy with glasses says Princess Reina stayed behind in the city of Lama. The glasses guy says Princess Reina stayed in Lama, apparently because of the refugees. Hearing this, the man orders him to watch her closely and keep track of her whereabouts. He needs to investigate the pilot who was controlling that giant earlier and find out where he lives immediately. He wants to see what the man is made of personally. For a long time, the Lacan family flourished thanks to the river and fertile land. But most people have left, many houses are abandoned, and 3 villages are basically ghost towns now. He asks what he thinks about this problem. The protagonist simply tied up one of his subordinates. He asks why this is happening, and Simon says he is playing dumb because this problem is clearly his fault. But the guy says there was nothing he could do and that he really tried his best. Simon asked if he truly gave it his all. The guy had nothing to say, as he was just trying to survive. Simon asks if he really tried, but the guy just stayed silent, trying to survive. The protagonist says he would love to hang him in the square as an example, but his past is actually quite interesting. Apparently, he is a talented individual recognized by the Empire. Apparently, he is a talented guy recognized by the Empire, but he turned down other offers to come here. He asked for the financial books from the last 10 years to see how things were going, and he delivered them in one day. He asked for the finance records from the last 10 years, and the guy brought them in one day without a single mistake. Hearing that, the old man lights up, bragging that he is an absolute pro at arithmetic. He claims he can solve any math problem in his head, but Simon says that is exactly the issue. The man brags about solving complex math in his head, but Simon tells him that is the issue while grabbing the guy by his shirt collar. Then, he literally tosses the guy off the mountain and follows him right down the slope. After a moment, the guy crashes down at the bottom. Completely lost and confused, the guy looks up and asks the protagonist what he thinks he is doing. He looks up and notices a town, shocked that people in this county are living like this. It is impossible. There should not be a slum this bad anywhere. Simon asks him how it feels to see the village with his own eyes, telling him that you cannot just reduce human lives to simple numbers. Simon tells him he needs to actually spend time here to see the truth of the county for himself. If he cannot figure out the root cause of this misery, then he is done working for them. He needs to realize that people are more than just statistics. If he wants to keep his job, the guy asks if he is being fired, but Simon just asks if he is ready to quit already. Suddenly, the man heads off to meet the local residents right away. Simon thinks it is fine to just watch the village for now, but there is a better time for that. He is just observing for now, but knows there is a better time for it. First, he must improve this place. Also, he can finally expand his circle. As he works to expand his circle, the scene shifts. The others are shocked that he paid off all those debts just by gambling. Philip simply confirms that the rumors are actually true. The others worry the family reputation will be ruined if people find out. They demand to know what happened. They claim the family name will be trashed if word gets out, and they ask why Phillips did not stop him. One of the soldiers calls out to Phillips with a serious question. He asks if his identity was kept secret. He says of course not. After all, he is not that stupid, right? However, He suddenly remembers that he actually blurted out the protagonist's name at that exact moment. Man, honestly, nothing good is going to happen for that poor guy now. Seriously. Things are looking bad for the guy now. He admits he was way too stupid, but at least he kept his identity hidden during the games. Even if he stayed hidden during the games, the butler says it is only a matter of time before the truth comes out. Given the Count's intelligence, the news will reach him quickly. This could even spark a war, and realistically, there is nothing they could do to stop it if that actually happens. Count Monarch is known for expanding his land through war, and they just gave him a perfect excuse to start another one. The Count expanded his territory through constant war, and they just handed him a brand new excuse to do it again. Just then, Simon appears on the scene. He asks the people who care so much about the family reputation if they should just ignore the evil acts happening right in front of their faces. The soldier claims they are only being realistic about the situation. Their military strength is honestly nothing compared to Count Monarch's army. Their military power is nothing compared to Count Monarch's forces. They only wanted to warn him that his choices put the whole house in danger. Hearing this, Simon asks if they earned their titles as heroes just by licking the boots of those in power. Hearing this, Simon asks if they became heroes by kissing up to the powerful, or if they were heroes because they fought for justice even when the odds were against them. The butler says the people are giving it their all, but then things take a turn. He asks if the problems are finally solved now. Even so, they're making a massive scene just because he made a simple bet. The two of them continue to argue. Simon snaps that a good reputation does not fill an empty stomach. His duty is to protect his people, and right now, the residents are starving because their living conditions are completely unbearable. It is his job to protect them, yet the people are starving and dying in terrible conditions. He tells them they lack the ability to prioritize what actually matters. Man, the protagonist is absolutely roasting these people right now. Honestly, he is not going to tolerate this behavior again. Everything is definitely going to change from here on out. If you think his orders are wrong, you are free to leave whenever you want. He says anyone who disagrees with his orders can leave, and anyone who refuses to follow them will be fired. Approaching Phillips, he tells the boy he did a great job and is just as skilled as the captain. Hearing that, the kid is completely surprised. Simon says it is only fair for someone with that much skill to be the captain of the Knights. He asks Rogers for his opinion. Rogers agrees, saying that whoever wins the upcoming duel will be officially appointed as the new Knight captain. Phillips immediately panics, explaining that this man is his uncle and the one who taught him how to fight. However, the guy is just unbelievable. He accepts the challenge, saying that he never had a real chance to prove his skills until now. Simon admits he hopes his skills actually match his confidence. Moments later, the pair are standing across from each other, finally ready to fight. Philip promises to give it everything he has, and the two draw their steel. The duel finally begins. Simon notices Philip looking a bit shaky, likely realizing Rogers is a powerhouse. Suddenly, the kid unleashes his aura and charges, but Rogers blocks it like it is nothing, noting that the boy's skills have definitely leveled up since their last meeting. Philip claims things are different this time and that exact second launches another strike at his uncle. He keeps circling his target. Rogers remarks that it seems the kid is not messing around, appearing suddenly behind the man. He says the young lord clearly had a good reason to praise him, but to truly become the blade that protects the family, he needs way more training. Rogers then literally slams him into the dirt. Just like that, Philip was crushed. He gets tossed aside, but the boy still refuses to quit. However, that very moment, Rogers drops a sword to the boy's neck. He tells him the fight is officially over. With no other move, the boy surrenders. Right then, in the heat of things, the soldier asks the young master if that is enough proof of why he is the commander of the Knights. Watching the whole thing, the boy gets hyped, saying the entire display was legendary. Later on, the squaff was training when Rogers tells him not to quit now, since the young master is watching. Samuel admits he never expected to lose so fast. Philip adds that Uncle Rogers is easily one of the 5 best swordsmen on the entire continent. Poor guy was left completely spinning, and the protagonist says he plans to choose him as his personal guard. Simon explains he wants him as his official escort, telling Philip to do whatever it takes to step up into that role. And, hearing those words, the kid gets totally choked up. He swears he will give it his all to become the blade that protects his lord. He will prove he is worthy of that trust. If that is the case, then Simon says the boy needs to hurry up and join their training session right away. There is no time to waste if he wants to be a real protector. Simon thinks it is absolutely wild that 10 out of 50 knights would be considered specialists. Already he figures they can thank their legendary warrior family lineage for those results. Those two have the kind of incredible raw talent that most people only dream of. And if that is the reality, then it is painfully clear why the family ended up in this current state in the first place. The scene cuts to later. A servant asks Simon what on earth he thinks he is doing. First he sells the statue, and now he is liquidating all the family's ancient treasures. The servant asks if he intends to just throw away the group's honor and name. Simon tells him that if it brings in money, then he is doing it. Simon is all about the cash, but the servant was not about to let this one slide so easily this time. He asks why he is doing all of this. The guy was losing it, while the protagonist just watches him in silence. Simon stares him down in silence, saying the great warrior of Lacan died 500 years ago, meaning those dusty old treasures are not going to help anyone today. He tells him to use his head for once. It is because of these outdated traditions doing everything for Lacan honor that the family ended up in this current disaster. It was because of these old ways that the family name fell into ruin. He blames vassals like them for the collapse of the group's status, but the old man claims that is impossible. He argues that if it were not for the Demon King's curse, none of this would be happening. Simon calls out that attitude. They praise their ancestors for the good times, but then blame Demon King for their downfall. Anyway, he plans to become someone even greater than the warrior of Lacan, so if you want to stay trapped by those old rules, then he will just erase you from the history books. The kid means business. Later servants ask if Hans is okay. He remembers holding the protagonist as a baby while reading him a book, and honestly, he cannot believe how much the boy has changed. His constant visits to the castle made no sense. Those trips to the Demon King's castle had no explanation. Now he is convinced that the boy really is the Demon King's curse. Phillips asks if he can just ignore Hans's advice this once because that comment was seriously cold. Phillips wonders why he won't listen to Hans just this once since he was so insensitive. But our hero sees things differently. He doesn't want to give Hans even a second to think. They can talk later. He asks if the job is actually finished. A bit later, the scene shifts somewhere else entirely. Damon mentions this isn't at all what Philip described. The man in the cell looked totally broken. The young man, noticing someone was lurking outside, asks who they are. Right at that second, our hero feels a massive, heavy pressure. He is certain this is fifth circle power, or maybe something even more powerful than that. The unfriendly prisoner snaps again, telling them to answer who they are right then. Simon says he heard the guy had been locked up for ages, but he looks fine. He asks what the Iron Mage is doing rotting in a hole like this. Recognizing him, the old man asks why the young lord would visit him here. He asks if he really expected the lord to ignore someone slacking off in his land. He heard the man was starving himself, which is why Hans locked him up. The man agrees. He lost consciousness after an accident with the giant caused by his own mistake. He just wants to waste away now. Simon asks if his life is really worth so little to him. It has already been confirmed that the accident with the giant was not his fault at all. But the old man insists that if he had just been more careful, it never would have happened. He begs for severe punishment. Our hero is getting frustrated because while the man is loyal, this is just going way too far. Feinsteinstadt is what he wants. He will give him exactly what he asked for. He tells Phillips to bring his sword immediately. The boy is totally lost and confused. The old man seems to have accepted his fate right then. Simon says since he begged for it, he is going to deliver a real punishment. Simeon says since he asked for it, he will give him a proper punishment. He raises his sword and he breaks the guy's chains. The man is stunned, asking what on earth is going on. He says he will profit way more by using him. After all, he hates losing out. He says he will get more out of using him. He hates taking losses. He plans to make the man work until his very last breath. He is going to make him work forever. He tells Phillips to drop the sack on the floor. A pile of gold coins spills out. The protagonist says it isn't much, but there is 70,000 pesos there. Use it to build the magic tower. He says it is about 70,000 pesos. Use that cash to prepare for the magic tower. Buy whatever grimoires you need and secure the equipment to repair and build more giants. Unlike the lords of the past, he plans to invest heavily in magic. He tells him to make sure an incident like this never happens again. Unlike past lords, he is going all in on magic. He orders him to ensure no more accidents happen. The man gets choked up, amazed he is being rewarded after causing so much trouble. Sammy says he has no idea what the man is talking about, because all of this is strictly a punishment, nothing more and nothing less. This is strictly a punishment, so he better decide quickly since he doesn't intend to forgive him. That is Lee, right? And then the scene changes. The man drops to his knees. He claims his title as the Iron Mage of the Lacan family, until the day he dies. He swears to spend his life making up for his past mistakes. He vows to dedicate his life to atoning for his mistakes. Phillips is shocked, thinking Lord Moody and that Mina are incredible. It seems Phillips is amazed by the Lord Moody impact. That Mina is just incredible. So, everything was finally settled and moving forward. Meanwhile, the servant Haynes was watching the whole thing from a distance. He is thinking Simon actually convinced a man as stubborn as Muti, thinking Simon is impressive for persuading Muti. But for some reason, he still feels a bit uneasy and cautious. A month passes. Hans watches the family slowly but surely start to make real progress after all that mess. Phillips isn't lazy anymore. He is training harder than everyone. Even Moody, who was hiding in shame, is now taking charge and training the new recruits at that. Just then, someone else shows up saying it has been a very long time. That little kid from earlier finally makes his return. Surprised, Hans asks where he has been. He says honestly, it is a really long story, but he thinks it would be better to show him rather than just explaining it. When they get back to that beat-up town, it looks like a completely different world to them. Anyone can sell their products freely now. This was decided together with the residents. They are even discussing how to improve the fief while old. Inefficient traditions are finally being abolished. He asks Hans if the five should have been run like this from the very beginning. At this point, there is no denying it. The butler realizes he has no choice but to agree, but he can't deny that. All this goes against 500 years of Lacan family policy. Later on, the night captain admits he had the exact same concerns as Hans does now. The night captain mentions he used to have the exact same concerns as Hans. However, he put those doubts aside once the protagonist proved his worth through real results. He has nothing more to say now. As he stands up to leave, he asks a question. He asks if it is not his duty to put complete faith in the young lord. The man finally exits, and the servant is left deep in thought. He notes how quickly everyone was won over. A week later, the servant has all the requested documents ready. He promises to handle the office work tomorrow and asks for any other tasks. Meanwhile, water drips from the ceiling. Hans offers to fix the leak, but Simon tells him to focus on his priorities. He says there are too many people in his territory with no roof over their heads at all. He needs to put those people first. On the other hand, our friend the butler is slowly starting to see the right path. He thinks the more he gets to know the Lord, the more he truly wants to follow him. Regardless, he still has to determine what his master's true intentions are. A bit later, the servant stalks through the woods, following the protagonist. He thinks about how the boy sneaks out every single night to some secret spot. It turns out these nightly visits lead straight to the Demon King's castle. Honestly, he hates to even think it, but maybe the young master has been consumed by the Demon King's curse. Just then, the kid stops in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, a group of people appears. Simon asks if they finished the task. The bald man says of course, it was no big deal. Watching from afar, Hans is shocked. Those men are the same bandits banished for looting. It looks like they have been hiding here this whole time. Simon says they work fast and tells them to get started. The bearded man says he understands, thanks to Simon's book. Hans wonders why the Lord gave books to thieves. He is too far away to hear anything and wonders what the Lord is planning. Then the whole village shouts that, thanks to him, they can finally read. They thank him for everything the Lord has done so far. Because of him, even the kids can read. Thanks to his medicine, one man's wife can walk again. His whole family can finally live a good life now. The protagonist gets embarrassed, saying he is just happy to help out. Everything has a price, and he knows they are ready. The bearded man agrees. Even if they live as bandits, they are not ungrateful animals at all. He tells Simon to make his request, promising to do whatever he orders. Our guy smiles and pulls a pile of books and gold coins from his bag. Nobody understands what is happening. Simon says the answer is inside the books. Once they read them, everything will make sense. Apparently, there is a land transfer happening. Simon explains that these documents officially recognize them as residents of his territory. With these, they have the legal right to claim this land as their own. He plans to build a brand new town nearby where they can finally live in peace. He is going to build a town nearby so they can live there. Hearing this, the old man says they are just thieves who betrayed their lord. They cannot accept such a gift. Even though they are thankful, they just do not have the right to take it. They are grateful, but unfortunately, they cannot accept it. The protagonist says he knows that, even if they had no choice, looting is a serious crime. However, the fact that the Lacan family forced them into it is another crime he can never forgive. Even though they stole, he truly believes they still have a chance to atone for their crimes. Anyway, that money is only half a year of pay. From now on, they will become his personal mercenaries. Is he really trying to form a village gang? This is their path to redemption. It is the only future he can offer them right now. However, the path they take toward that future is up to them, and because of that, he will keep trusting his group. With that, my friend, there was no other way. And so, the entire village swears loyalty to our hero. Watching from a distance, Hans remembers that bandits inside the territory were always targets for subjugation. At least, that was the old rule of the Lacan family. The scene shifts, and Philip says they have already spent almost all the money they brought from Lama. He asks what to do now, but Simon tells him to shut up. He asks if he brought the proper mining records. He only has records of failed attempts. Even though they searched their entire territory, they have not found a single sign of a mine anywhere. Simon asks why they went into debt for something with such a low chance of success. The boy explains it was their only real choice at the time. They were in a desperate spot because of several unfortunate events that happened in such a short period. After reviewing the situation, Simon realizes things were even worse than he thought. It is basically impossible to keep the territory running this way. However, something is strange. There should be at least one mine here. When asked why there are no records, Philip says that is the Rokia mountain range. Exploring it was too dangerous because of all the monsters. Even though they sent knights to explore several times, the monsters lurking around every corner forced them back. They always ended up returning home empty. Simon asks if that means the region is off. Phillips, totally sensing what Simon is thinking, tells him not to come up with any crazy plans. But it was already too late. A little while later, deep in those cursed mountains, Simon says he thought Phillips was just exaggerating like usual, but man, he was actually right this time. It is super weird though. These creatures usually live in separate areas. He wonders why on Earth they are actually working together. No way they adapted to fighting humans this fast. And just then, one of those beasts lunges straight at our hero. He starts dodging all the attacks. Another huge wave of creatures comes rushing right at him, summoning his magic. Simon says they think they are tough, but he is taking over now. Suddenly a bunch of stone golems appear, and that is when the real chaos starts. One monster tries to attack a golem, but it does absolutely nothing. The massive stone giant just countered, grabbing the beast and hurling it far away into the distance. It was not even a fair fight. Watching the beast fly off, Simon smiles and says this is going way better than he expected. As time goes by, the golems keep crushing more and more of the creatures inside the forest. Still, those things just keep coming. Now he totally gets why the knights failed until now. Handling all of this is definitely a challenge, but obviously, it is not impossible. Right then, another monster shows up. Judging by its dark aura, it is probably the leader. With no other choice, Simon is going to have to jump into the fight himself and, stepping toward the beast, he says he really does not have any time to waste. He places his hand right on the orc's head, trying to use some kind of brainwashing magic. Apparently, it worked. A few minutes later, that massive beast was under Simon's command. Talk about a comeback. The tables have completely turned now, left with no choice. The monsters, they finally stop attacking. Simon, full of confidence, says he won't hurt a soul as long as they lead him straight to their boss. A few minutes later, Simon lets one of the goblins go and says he has a question to ask. He heard there is a spot where dwarves come and go, so he asks if they know anything. But all the monsters stay silent. Simon figured that would happen, but right then, one of the monsters tells him not to worry. It kneels down and says it will guide him. After a while, the kid is standing right in front of a giant pile of rocks. The boy asks if this is the entrance, and the goblin says that is exactly right. Looks like these are just the remains of an avalanche, and there might be something hidden inside. For some reason though, all those monsters seemed absolutely terrified. Simon says he has no idea what is in there, but there is only one way to find out. Casting a quick spell, he blows the passage open. Immediately, our boy starts to smile. He says this is definitely an old mine. The monsters are still shaking, so he tells them they are free to go. In exchange, they must never hurt humans again. They need to live in peace until he gives them orders. Until then, they must stay hidden. As the creatures leave, Simon says they will definitely come in handy at some point. Anyway, he needs to check out that mine. Good thing he warned his subordinates ahead of time. He says he gets it and heads off. In the past, humans used their crazy strength and techniques to basically oppress all the other races. They wanted humans to be the only ones left on the continent. That is why Simon, known as the Demon King, started burning down kingdom after kingdom. To the other races, he was basically their hero, their savior. The scene shifts back to the tower in Simon's glory days. Sitting on his throne, he says not even 10 of his comrades are left. The monsters stay quiet while Simon tells them to build a base in a new territory and get to work on the construction. Simon tells them to set up a base in another territory and start the construction. The monster is overjoyed and thanks him. Simon asks if anyone else is left. Suddenly someone shows up, claiming to be the last one and asking if it is okay to make an old man wait. Simon is shocked. He cannot believe a dwarf, a race famous for the best technology on Earth, came all this way. He says he never dreamed he would meet an ancient dwarf. The guy replies that Simon is pretty sharp, since it is not easy to tell just by looking. Simon asks why he is there, saying he thought not even humans could match them. The dwarf says humans have no real technology and just destroy nature blindly, ruining ecosystems everywhere. Hearing that, Simon asks if he is really planning to help someone who wants to wipe humans out. Simon asks if he really intends to help someone who plans to wipe humans out. The guy says that is exactly right, because if he does, they will use their advanced technology to upgrade the base. But then, Simon points out that he is human too. He asks the dwarf if he is still willing to help him anyway, but the old man just looks at him. Then the guy just laughs and tells him that he really is the Demon King. The scene cuts back to the present as Simon explores the cave. He remembers a dwarf mentioning a massive mine here, and he was right. After all this time, you would expect it to be crumbling, but it is in great shape. It just goes to show those dwarven builders are on another level. Their skills are honestly insane. There is plenty of ore here, and once they hire some miners, his people will be set for a long time. But something feels off about this whole thing. Right then, Simon notices something weird. The mine construction just stops abruptly right in front of him. Check it out. Everything just comes to a dead end right here. Looking around, he starts thinking that humans supposedly took over this place after he died, or so he heard. Even so, there is loot everywhere. No matter how much of a hurry they were in, they would not just leave all this behind. There is definitely something fishy going on. Suddenly, the entire cavern starts shaking. Something huge is crawling across the floor. This cannot be good. Simon finally realizes why the local monsters are so spooked. This thing is the master of the mine. But the protagonist is not worried about that at all. He is going to take this beast down. No hesitation. The kid summons 2 of his golems, and man, the fight was about to get real. The massive beast lets out a deafening roar as the golems charge in. Fighting in such a tight space was not going to be easy for anyone. Simon stays totally chill, watching the chaos from a distance. He leaps up and blasts the creature with a wave of flames. That should have hurt, but surprisingly, it did not even leave a mark. Simon knows his magic is a bit weaker lately, but this thing tanked the hit without a single scratch. Right then, the monster breaks free from the golems and lunges at our boy. It is not that simple though. The golems manage to grab a hold of the beast one more time. Still, this terrifying monster is not giving up. It slams into one of the golems and sends it flying across the room. Simon is actually shocked. While that is happening, the creature starts staring at some nearby, or I do not know how, but it absorbs the minerals and literally evolves right there. A few minutes later, Simon wonders where this thing even came from. No matter what skills he throws at it, nothing is doing any damage. There is no other choice. He has to bring a giant in here. But the problem is, life is never that simple. A massive crystal falls from the ceiling, blocking the cave entrance. Simon is trapped. He realizes this thing is way tougher and smarter than he first thought. But then, a new idea hits him. If a beast this big was roaming outside, it would have left a trail of destruction through the woods. That means it must live exclusively in these mines. If that is the case, bringing a giant in here might not even work. Things are getting messy, but if he can just find a weakness, he might have a shot at winning. The boy just keeps staring at the beast. He is searching for a weak point, but he is going to need some time. He starts searching around the cave looking for any edge, and right then, he finds it. He picks up a dwarven pickaxe and realizes this might be his ticket to victory. He charges at the creature and literally starts mining the stone right off its head. The scene then shifts back to the mansion, where everyone is wondering why the young master sneaks out every single night. Poor Philip explains that every time he tries to shadow our hero, he somehow manages to vanish. The townspeople say he's always hanging around the Demon King's castle. The soldier says he did not think much of it before, but now that he knows the situation, he gets why Hans is so stressed. Suddenly, the butler shows up and says there is no reason to worry. He has decided to put all his faith in the protagonist. Right now, he truly believes that Simon is doing everything possible for his people. Back at the cave, the kid uses his magic to strike the creature from above. He lands on his golems just as a massive explosion rocks the room. Looks like the beast is finally down. The golems start clearing the rubble off the monster's head, and that is when Simon spots something nearby. He comes across a skeleton that clearly belonged to an old dwarf. All his artifacts and gear were still right there on the body. It looks like they were trying to protect this place to the very end. Anyway, Simon hopes this is enough for now, since he finally has a spot to rest his head. Plus, he hoped the dwarf would understand. Even though he is taking the gear, he does not have any bad intentions. The scene then cuts back to the mansion. The guy with glasses reads a message from Simon saying he found a mine. The place is packed with ore, and the best part is, there are no monsters left. Since there are no threats, the mage says they need to start getting the digging equipment ready to clear out the tunnels, but Hans says that is not necessary. The tunnels are in such good shape, it is like someone has been maintaining them this whole time. With the right crew, they are going to make a massive profit. Simon listens to all this in silence, thinking about how his territory is finally coming together. He basically moved those monsters into the mountains as a defense plan for any future wars. If their own forces ever fall short, those creatures will definitely be the perfect backup. Hans calls out to the protagonist, telling him that all of this success is thanks to his hard work. But the kid says he just finished what everyone else started. If they want to survive, they cannot get lazy or lose focus. Even a tiny mistake could leave them in the dust. He then changes the subject, asking if he can trust them to run the territory while he is away. A mission. The butler asks where he is headed, and Simon tells him to get the details from Philip. Philip explains that the young lord has decided it is time to buy a giant. Just then, the knight captain appears, saying he will personally make sure everything goes smoothly on the trip. They immediately start bickering over who gets to go with the boy. A bit later, they are already on the road. Philip is super hyped, saying that owning a giant is like a total dream. Simon reminds him they already have some, but Philip says this brand new model is on a whole different level. Anyway, a true pilot's only legit when he's flying one of those. Then the soldier tells him to stop that nonsense. He shouldn't even dream of messing around while they're traveling, telling him to just shut his mouth once and for all. Watching this go down, Simon's glad he brought Rogers. He's the only one who can actually keep Phillips under control. And then, right at that second, my friend, a locomotive literally appears, Nobody understood a single thing. A bit later, Rogers hops off that machine. Simon asks what it was, and the soldier explains it's a carriage powered by magical energy. It's unbelievably expensive and way stronger than normal ones used for hauling heavy loads. Right then, someone walks up to them and asks if everyone is doing okay. Judging by their looks, based on their faces, they'd never seen a train like that before. Rogers asks who the heck they even are, and the guy, totally chilled, says they're merchants from a company called Shade. They travel through rural lands buying up all the local specialties. Simon says he's never heard of them. The guy just laughs and says they're a brand new startup. Switching gears, he looks strange. He asks if the kid happens to be the lord of some noble house. Simon asks why he's suddenly so curious, since they've never even crossed paths before now. Making up an excuse, he says merchants are always pitching. They're just trying to network with powerful lords like him. He figures the kid's from a promising family, but Simon says he's not exactly famous. Suddenly, the merchant's face completely flips. His vibe shifts, and he says he's just too used to sales talk. Maybe he was too direct. Simon ignores him and says they're busy. It's time for them to get back on the road. Everyone leaves, like nothing happened. But the guy keeps staring at a paper. He says he thought he'd have to trek all the way to the Lacan estate to find him. He never imagined they'd cross paths here. Looking at that list, I can tell this won't end well. Our boy is the only one on there without an X over his name. The scene cuts away, and Phillips notes those people felt like mercenaries. Rogers agrees. No way a brand new merchant group has a machine like that. That man was sketchy, and his crew didn't look like traders either. Simon just listens in silence. He's thinking about the fact that it's not over, because that machine was carrying something with a faint flow of mana. He seems to know what's inside. Right then, someone starts walking toward them. The soldiers go on high alert, and you already know. Man, it's that merchant again. He's acting calm, calling it a coincidence. Then Simon points out he was heading the other way and wants to know why he's back. He claims he had unfinished business and saw their campfire light on the way. He asks if they can join them, and unbelievably, our hero actually accepts the offer. He accepts the offer, asking the others if they're cool with it too. Deep in the woods, the guy had an army of assassins waiting. The merchant says he underestimated the rookie, but he's still the lord of a territory after all. The kid is definitely sharp. Suddenly, the assassins reveal themselves. The guy says it's not personal, just his job, and orders the assassins to finish off every last one of them. Phillips tells Simon to stay close and get behind them immediately. Watching this, Simon realizes he's got a lot of enemies. This is way too big for a simple hit. Plus, these guys can actually fight. They're holding their own against heavy hitters like Phillips and Rogers. If this turns into a long battle, they're definitely going to lose. Just then, an assassin lunges to strike the protagonist down, but Rogers wasn't about to let that happen. Still, the assassin actually blocks his hit. The soldier checks if Simon is okay. He realizes these aren't just bandits, every one of them is a highly trained knight. The fake merchant watches, then raises his hand. A massive shadow looms over the soldiers as a giant appears. He tells them to surrender. Simon recognizes that energy from before. With no other choice, he yells for Phillips and Rogers to close their eyes right now. They're to do exactly as told. The kid immediately unleashes his dark magic. After landing the blow, a massive explosion rips through. Nobody can see a thing. An opening appears for the group to escape, and they take it. The merchant, still dazed, tells his men to pull it together. One of the assassins says they were never told the target could use magic. The scene cuts back to the group that already made it out. No one expected Simon to handle a crazy situation like that so well. Nobody expected that much magic talent. Philip says he is definitely a one-of-a-kind knight, without a doubt. Simon shuts them down, saying if they can talk, they can run. It is lucky they were in the forest. On the open plains, they would have been caught for sure. Since it is night, tracking them is hard, so they need to put as much distance as possible between them and the enemy right now. If they want to live, they have to keep moving fast. But man, that peace did not last long. Suddenly, the assassins appear. They manage to catch up to Simon, who can't believe they were able to overtake him this quickly. Rogers just yells at him to keep running. Philip notes they have way fewer men than before. Simon asks if the two of them will even be okay. Philip tells him to have a little faith. They haven't even shown their true power yet. With no other choice, Simon agrees and says he will leave the rest of the fight to them. And now, my friend, the real chaos is about to kick off. And, at that exact moment, Philip charges the assassins with his aura glowing. He shouts that it is time to show what he is really capable of. Meanwhile, Rogers was still fuming that they dared to try and hurt Simon. He lunges at the soldiers, fueled by nothing but pure, unadulterated rage. Since they dared to point their blades at Houseley, they better be ready to pay the ultimate price for their crimes. The scene shifts to a city swallowed by flames, with Raina watching the disaster from afar. The old man tells her they have to leave right now, but Raina is too kind and says she cannot just abandon her people to save herself. The townspeople insist that they will be just fine. With no other choice, the old man grabs her hand. telling her she must leave for the sake of everyone. Time passes, and the city is consumed by fire. Sadly, not everyone was lucky enough to make it out of the burning ruins alive. Seeing the carnage, all the poor girl can do is apologize. Right then, a man appears, saying it has been a long time since he last saw the princess. It was the Count, and he had something to say. He says they have been focusing on disciplining the troops lately, using night training to keep the citizens safe once the sun goes down. Of course, the old man already knows exactly what actually happened, but there is absolutely nothing he can do about it, right? The Count reminds the princess of what he told her before. He tells her she is the one making life hard for her people. Either way, she will live in regret and despair forever. Man, this guy's a total piece of work. After hearing all that, the girl just stares. Raina thinks to herself that she definitely will not. We go back to the forest where Simon realizes no one is chasing him anymore. He still has no idea who is behind this, or how they even have the power to mobilize a giant like that. Either way, he might need to head back home and prep for war. But right at that moment, our boy notices something off. Right in front of him stood two giants and a massive group of assassins. The merchant admits he underestimated him, asking if they should call it a draw. Who would have thought the heir to a hero family would use such weak magic? Simon asks if he had a problem with his magic, but even so, going through all of this, going this far just to catch one teenager was pretty insane. The merchant just smiles, saying it is interesting to give your all even when you are just hunting a rabbit. Hearing that, Simon immediately bursts out laughing. He laughs, saying they think they cornered him just because they split him up from his escort knights. The guy is shocked, wondering how Simon can stay so calm in a situation as desperate as this. He wonders if the kid gave up or just went insane. He warns Simon that buying time is useless, but Simon just starts casting, saying none of them will survive. A massive magic circle appears, and you already know what comes next, right? The merchant just stares. He watches everything in total silence as the real mess begins. Suddenly, a whole bunch of things start to happen. A group of golems appear, and no one understands what is going on. Simon just says he gets it and heads off. Even then, the merchant tells his men to stay calm. He says golems were only a threat in the past, and they cannot forget they still have two giants. Even dozens of golems wouldn't stand a chance against them. He declares that whoever brings him the boy's head becomes the next knight commander. After hearing that, those assassins get totally fired up and charge at our boy without wasting any time at all. They're about to see if his golems are really useless after 500 years. He activates his puppet skill to control every golem at once, leaving the assassins stunned by his speed. The merchant yells furiously that those are just a bunch of mere golems. Simon warns that if they keep underestimating his power like that, they'll only regret it once they're dead. The golems mimic our boy's every move, and after that creature punched the ground. No one understood anything. Some even assumed he just couldn't control those massive things properly anymore. But, however, Simon says he is going to give them some free advice. Knowing the layout of the battlefield is the basis of any real strategy. Right then, the merchant finally starts to understand what is actually happening. Suddenly, the ground starts collapsing, and the assassins go into a total free fall. Simon says he had already warned them before this started. Attacks everyone with his golem, and now everyone gets sent flying. There was nothing left, not even of the giant. With everything finally settled, Simon says he should have kept someone alive to find out who was behind this. But then our boy is suddenly attacked. It worked. That merchant was still alive with one giant, screaming he would never forgive Simon for destroying his knights. But Simon says this situation might actually be a win, since he will capture him and make him confess everything. The guy tells him to try it and immediately charges with a knife. Cedric then tries to summon some dark magic for help. Unbelievably, his mana was totally getting out of control. That damn curse just keeps getting in the way and taking advantage of the chaos, the merchant goes all out against him. Even so, our boy definitely hasn't given up yet. Placing his hand on the ground, he asks if the man really thinks he wouldn't be able to deal with him easily. The kid wasn't playing. Suddenly, several tentacles burst from the ground, and the merchant finally realizes that this is dark magic. It is impossible for a hero's descendant to be using power like that. Simon just watches everything. He says that before his patience runs out, the guy better reveal who his master is, having no other choice. The guy says he will tell everything since it's over. The Count was behind it. He begs for. But of course, he wasn't getting any mercy this time around. Right? Seymour finishes off the merchant without hesitation. With everything finally settled, our protagonist says that, whether human or demon, the feeling of absorbing power is still unpleasant. He begins to reflect on everything. He wonders if the Count had another hidden reason for targeting the Lacan family. Either way, he will make them regret it very soon. Just then, someone appears in the bushes. It was Phillips, and Simon says they arrived even faster than he thought. Either way, they should leave quickly. And sometime later, Roger says the Duke is probably behind this anyway, so Simon should return home to reinforce his troops even more because because there is no guarantee that something similar won't happen again. However, Simon says that after taking so much damage, the enemy won't move easily. Now is the best time to secure a giant. Roger says they cannot get there without a carriage, but the kid says they already have one. A short time later, the three are inside the locomotive, and Phillips is just happy everything ended without any more incidents. Watching the chaos unfold, Simon realizes that curse nearly ended him. That power keeping the dark circle in his heart at bay was definitely the curse's doing. Even with his energy back, it just doesn't feel like enough. He wonders who could even cast something that lethal. Meanwhile, elsewhere, that merchant from before is shaking with fear. He's standing in front of a hooded figure asking if his name is Du. The little man with the mustache nods, asking exactly why he'd been summoned here today. The hooded figure asks if he remembers the orders to secure the Demon King's fortress. He says his guild almost had it, but some idiot interfered and ruined everything. Hearing that, the mysterious guy didn't seem very happy. He asks if he knows the identity of the person responsible for this. Darren panics instantly, swearing he'll succeed this time. But the man calmly says he never mentioned anything about killing him. Right now he's just curious. He wants to know who exactly is standing in the way of his master plan. Later the scene shifts to the city of Brandon. Simon notes it's way busier than Lama was. Rogers explains that Brandon is famous across the continent for its magic towers. Because of that, the streets are crawling with mages, mechanics, and technicians living there. They are the ones who make this place a hub for magic tech. They end up being the driving force behind the entire city's rapid development. Basically, it is the best possible place for anyone looking to buy a giant. Simon admits he's getting hyped up and is actually pretty excited to see it. Philip says there's no need to look elsewhere since the city has its own magic tower branch. Most of the famous giants across the continent were actually built by them. Hearing that, our guy is shocked, wondering if a branch really exists in town. A flashback hits him. Those were the same people who hurt his wife. They've grown so powerful over 500 years that they've even opened a branch here. He's going to use this chance to see their true nature for what it really is. Paying them feels wrong. But if the performance is solid, he'll have to buy the giants. Buying from them sucks, but if the performance is good, he'll buy them. Then he'll just dismantle it, find its weak spots, and build something even better. Soon after, a soldier stops them, saying only those ranked baron or higher can enter. Hearing that, Simon calls him rude, asking if he's really judging him without even checking his status first. Philip announces that this is Luke, heir to the Lacan barony, demanding respect right now. The soldier just laughs, asking if this isn't the family famous for being broke. They don't have money for a giant, let alone repairs. They're poor and can't afford a giant, period. Things get heated between the soldiers, but Simon tells his friends to ignore them. There is no point in dealing with that kind of person. He thinks to himself that even after 500 years, they're still rotten. Regardless, the scale here is huge. It is on a totally different level from any magic tower he's seen before. He assumes the giants from this workshop must be top tier in both quality and quantity. Simon notes their disgusting attitude remains. Same as he leaves, he says there's no way he is spending money on people who threw away basic manners. It is just not happening. A bit later, Rogers was livid. Simon apologizes for the trouble but says if the guards are that bad, the inside must be worse. They should find another magic tower. He'll let it slide for now since finding a giant is the main priority. But listen, once everything is finished, he'll make sure to get some serious revenge. The scene then shifts as Rogers mentions this is one of the top 10 magic towers. He's heard that no other place on the entire continent can match its impressive and lightning production speed. Our guy keeps analyzing the giants until an attendant named Garrett appears, asking what brings them to the magic tower. He asks if they need a specific model. Simon says he wants one in the 30,000 peso range. Then, Garrett hands him a massive book. The guides and explanations are detailed and perfectly organized. Most importantly, even the service was impressive. Unlike the Veritas Tower, they don't judge you by status and actually seem to care about the customers. They don't care about your status and actually value customers. It looks like not all 10 magic towers are complete trash after all. If the performance is actually good, he'll definitely buy from them. If it works well, he'll buy here. Meanwhile, another customer is panicking because the magic tower can't repair his giant. He bought it there, but it clearly had a durability defect. As soon as the giant hit something, it crumpled like an old soda can. He'd bought a defective giant that crumpled like a tin can the moment it hit something. Hearing that, our hero immediately changes his mind. He says they don't need to waste any more time at this place. Things aren't easy for anyone here. They literally cannot find one decent place to go. They just can't find a good spot. Their options keep shrinking by the minute. No magic tower satisfied our hero's specific desires yet. Simon isn't impressed. He heard this city is famous for giant production, but it looks like a total wreck. They claim this place specializes in giants, but it is a disaster. Rogers explains that back when the Empire controlled everything, only high-tier models were made. Now, as long as you have the cash, anyone can slap one together. Rogers mentions that under the Empire's old rules, They only built top-quality giants. But these days, money is all that matters, which has caused the overall quality to take a massive nosedive lately. While they are chatting, some guy in glasses brags about an innovative new giant. The guy in the hat, though, he could not care less about any of it. Philip points out beggars wandering around clutching blueprints. That pretty much explains why the quality of these machines has reached an all-time low. Meanwhile, Simon takes a quick look at the papers. He stares at the kid and says, "This design is actually pretty interesting. It uses golem theory for the structure. It is a bit old school, maybe even outdated, but it is not bad." He wonders if Moody's lessons are finally paying off, since he can actually appreciate this. Then, the boy asks him exactly how much cash he will need to invest. The guy gets super hyped, saying he will need around 10,000 pesos. He is totally thrilled, shouting that 10,000 pesos would do it. Looking at him, Simon cannot help but remember his old self. He takes a breath, and then tells the guy to show him the lab. A bit later, Rogers admits he thought the guy was broke. He did not think there would be any space or gear to build giants, but then Rogers realized he was totally wrong. The guy actually owns his own magic tower. The kid explains that their old giant models sold well enough to keep the lights on, but this new project is a total money pit that takes way too much time and resources to finish. Because of that, most of the crew quit, leaving only a few loyal people behind. Entering the tower, the young man tells them it must have been a rough trip, but there is no rush. They are free to look around as much as they want. Right then, Simon stops dead in his tracks. He starts staring at the giant, wondering if the boy has ever heard of Sting. Simon says he saw him once before, thinking to himself, "This guy definitely has some real talent hidden under the surface." The boy explains that while the outside looks familiar, the actual machine is a totally different beast compared to the last one. They used the latest tech and built it from scratch. Simon asks how long until it is finished. The guy says the hard part is done, and they're just doing final tweaks. It will probably take 1 or 2 months, maybe longer, since they are under. Simon does not want to wait. He offers to double the investment if they hire more technicians, finish in a single week. Hearing that, the guy gets absolutely pumped. Bursting through the door, he yells to the whole tower that work is back on. Plus, everyone is getting a huge raise this time around. The crew had been struggling lately, and the crew was hitting a wall. The giant progress was stuck at 67%, but that was about to change. They were not going to waste a single second now. Philip watches everyone hustle and asks Simon if he is sure about this. Simon tells him not to worry. He knows exactly how these research-obsessed mages operate. He tells him he is not worried. He has seen these magic-obsessed types before. Honestly, he is just excited to see this place climb the ranks and join the top 10 magic towers. Finally, night falls. Everyone was fast asleep. Well, everyone except Simon. He was out in the city, knowing he finally had what he needed. It was time for revenge. The scene shifts back to the magic tower where guards are on patrol. They hear a rustle in the bushes and shout, demanding to know who is there. Little did they know, Simon had already slipped through the front door and was already inside the building. He enters the tower, wondering where to start. Looking out a window, he sees a crowd gathered below. He activates his dark magic and begins to slip through the shadows. Using his dark magic, he sneaks through the place, thinking the security is surprisingly weak for a magic tower. But just wandering around won't help. He needs to track down a mage who actually knows something useful. Meanwhile, some guy in a hood is snooping around, looking incredibly nervous about something. A moment later, he is stoked that he finally made it inside the tower. He is thrilled to be in. The security is way worse than he expected, and now he can finally make his move. All he needs to do is find the mage's secret files. With those, he might finally become a master. Simon watches from the shadows, thinking there is always an idiot like this no matter where you go. The guy keeps creeping deeper into the tower, trying to pick the lock on one of the heavy doors. Suddenly, someone appears behind him, saying they do not remember giving anyone permission to enter. That means he is an intruder, and they have every right to take him out right now. The guy was not playing around. Terrified, the intruder starts stammering that he just took a wrong turn, begging for forgiveness and a second chance. Surprisingly, the mage says he actually thought he was a thief. He explains that it is a lucky coincidence, because he is carrying a super important scroll right now. It is a top secret document that absolutely cannot be leaked to the public. Since it is so private, he hoped the guy understood why security was so tight. Still, he admits all this pressure is pretty heavy, even for someone like him. Since he is a fellow mage, he must know the deal. He has probably heard about the new hero-level giant they have been working on in secret. Go and keep talking about that legendary giant. This guy actually thinks a single glance proves it is a total masterpiece, but he is dead wrong. Look, the whole thing was the mage's plan. The rule was simple. Kill anyone unworthy who saw the scroll. This guy is clueless, trying to argue he was the one who showed it. But the mage just denies everything, claiming he found it on his own. You can already guess how this ends, right? The guy is about to kick the bucket. He died just like that. The mage did not even care, saying if the guy had just stayed in his lane, he would still be alive. Right then, our hero steps out. He calls the mage out for leaking secrets just to justify a cold-blooded murder. Right then, our hero steps out. He calls the mage out for leaking secrets just to justify a murder. Honestly, whether it is the past or present, nobody in the Veretos magic tower is actually decent. We cut back to that guy in his office, complaining to himself. This last hero grade giant is taking way longer to analyze than he expected. Looks like his master plan is going to be delayed even further. But then, out of nowhere, the man senses something nearby. He knows he is not alone. Our boy finally reveals himself, guessing he is looking at the head of Veritas magic tower. The guy does not hesitate, charging his magic and demanding to know what the intruder wants. Simon just says his goal has been exactly the same for 500 years, which is basically to wipe trash like him off the face of the earth. Suddenly, the whole place goes up in smoke. A massive explosion rocks the room. The guy is stunned that Simon called the head of Veritas Academy trash. He thinks he is untouchable, claiming Simon will never see daylight again if he keeps acting out. But our boy just grabs him. He realizes nothing has changed in 5 centuries. These guys still think they are better than everyone else and treat people like garbage. Today, that fantasy ends. The name Veritas is being wiped from the history books forever. A few minutes later, our hero mocks him. He heard Iron Mages avoid fights, but a six-circled chief being this cowardly. Pathetic. Since he is here anyway, might as well grab the loot. He looks over the blueprints for a giant and says, Only a few of these designs exist on the whole continent. This is the hero giant blueprint, and he is definitely going to use it. A legendary blueprint like this is quite the catch. Watching it tear down the Veritas magic tower is going to be a hell of a show. Losing just one giant is a massive blow to the tower, but honestly, taking a single giant from Veritas is not nearly enough to make them pay for everything. So, the guy literally starts torching the entire office. A short while later, we cut back to that locomotive where things are moving. Simon figures all the family's deep secrets are probably ashes by now. Revenge was his main goal, but he walked away with way more than he expected. Suddenly, Philip shows up, looking way happier than he did when he first got the giant. Damon just says he is glad to be heading back to his own land. They definitely overachieved. Once they're back, he can focus on fixing his mana circle. But just then, he spots something strange. He can see that Princess Reina is actually waiting there in his territory. She tells him she really needs his help looking after all the new refugees. She wants help with the refugees, but then our hero steps up, asking what she is even doing there. The girl finally realizes who she is talking to, and then Simon asks what happened. He asks for details. She explains that after he left, the Count's behavior actually got worse. He became way more aggressive and totally unreasonable. Instead of honoring his word, he doubled taxes for refugees and kept bullying them. On top of that, he started burning their homes, killing and hurting people. He literally set their houses on fire, leaving people dead or injured. They could not stay there anymore, so they tried to get help from Marquis Myers, one of the top 3 noble leaders, but the Marquis still has not agreed to see them. The old man says they have been stuck like this for 3 days, totally ignored. She refuses to give up though and keeps praying right at the castle gate. Hearing all of that, Simon just says it is incredibly annoying, especially waiting around for some god who is never going to answer. He tells her to get real. From the Marquis's perspective, there is no reason to help. Why would he risk a territorial war just to feed tens of thousands of refugees? It makes 0 sense for him to take that kind of gamble. Taking in thousands of refugees during a war is a massive risk. He asks what kind of idiot would actually say yes to that. The girl asks if he really thinks she is just wasting her time. She asks if her efforts are useless, and Sammy tells her straight up, yeah, they are. After everything that went down in Lamer, she clearly has not learned a thing. He says that's the point. After everything in life, she still hasn't learned that protecting people requires real power. Without it, you're helpless. Even knowing she isn't his wife, every time he sees her, he can't help but remember. That's why he can't stop caring, right? He says for now, they are heading back to his territory to talk things out properly. However, Reina says she won't move until she meets the Mark. Hearing that, the guy gets totally pissed. He asks if she's really going to keep doing all this. She needs to face reality once and for all. Trying to take care of dozens of helpless refugees just means problems will keep coming, right? She should be worrying about herself way more than those refugees. Then she says there's no way to know how long it would take if she focused on herself to gain power and protect the refugees. He says there is no way to know how long it would take if she focused on herself to gain power and protect the refugees. If the people die during that time, it makes no sense. She asks if he thinks her life is worth more than the refugees. Simon answers instantly that obviously it is, but she says every single life is equally precious. Those people believe in her despite all the hardships. For that reason, she can never just abandon them, and she has to find a way to help them all. With that, the kid is reminded more and more of his wife, saying that if someone like her had been by his side 500 years ago, maybe things would have turned out a little different. The reason he wanted to change the world wasn't just revenge, but he'd forgotten that for a long time. Thanks to her, he remembered his true reasons. Hearing that, the girl didn't understand a damn thing. Then, Simon says he wants to offer her his strength too. He states that the Luck family will stand by his side. And sure, shortly after arriving at the Veritas Magic Tower, it seems they're under attack. A hooded guy appears, saying that the defenses in this place are truly disappointing. The guy was completely surrounded by soldiers when one of them suddenly recognizes the symbol on his back. Then all the soldiers drop their swords, saying they salute the 7th elder of the Veritas Magic Tower. That guy is named Piero, and he asks where the branch leader is. The soldier offers to guide him, and Piero asks if he is the one responsible for security in this place. The young man says yes, and Piero claims there is no need for a guide. Being escorted by someone so incompetent is disgusting. He takes the guy down with total ease. Everyone just watches in silence, and the guy says that in the Veritas Magic Tower, trash is unnecessary. At that very moment, a flashback appears with a boy drowning. The protagonist and his wife watch all of that from afar. He says he is going to get help from the nearest village, but Katerina says that by then it will be too late. With no other choice, the girl literally jumps into the water in the middle of that rain. A few minutes later, she has already rescued the boy, and he was unbelievably still alive. The girl is happy that everything worked out, and Simon is furious, asking why she did something so reckless. She says she was scared at the time too, but saving a life sometimes requires a certain kind of reckless courage. And back in the present, Simon thinks they don't just look alike. She's just as responsible as she was. At that very moment, Phillips asks what's going on. He heard about accepting refugees from the Kingdom of Volga and wants to know if there's a plan for war with the Monarch Count. With no choice, Roger says he agrees with Phillips too. At this rate, a war with the Count is inevitable. Even though their territory has improved a little, they aren't ready for a war. They keep arguing there, and the protagonist starts getting really pissed off. He says not to interfere because he is going to handle everything. A short while later, everyone is gathered in a hall. Simon asks if the number of refugees is really around 30,000. If that many people start moving, they will draw attention and be pursued immediately. If they went by sea, they would reach the Khan territory quickly. But since it's the dry season, they can't set sail. Besides, the land route is far too long. If they're pursued, they will definitely be caught, which means there is only one way. They're basically going to travel by river. The old man says they can't sail, and Simon says they'll use that to their advantage. They will have time to prepare and build rafts. Since the water's too shallow for ships, rafts will float just fine. They will make them big enough to carry a lot of people. Hearing that, Philip says it might be a good idea. However, Rogers disagrees, saying such a huge raft will be very slow. If they're pursued, they'll be easy to catch, and if they're attacked from afar, they can't counter. However, our boy says not to worry because he already considered that. For that reason, they're going to use the locomotive. With its mobility, they'll definitely be able to escape any trouble. The two are surprised by that method, but life isn't easy. The old man says they don't have enough resources to build huge rafts. The kid thought of that too, saying they still have money left from buying the giants. Plus, as soon as they're back, he'll send another 30,000 pesos to help. Hearing all that, Hena apologizes, saying she knows how difficult it is to accept all these refugees. The Locke family will definitely suffer great losses. However, the protagonist tells her not to worry because they'll definitely win. They can't act directly in this operation, and its success depends on them reaching the river safely. He asks if he can trust her to lead her people well, and so, with everything settled, the scene shifts elsewhere, and that guy from the Mage Tower was still alive. I thought he was already dead. At that moment, someone appears in the room saying he's in a deplorable state. It's Piero, who says if the master is like this, it's no surprise his subordinates were idiots too. Seeing who it was, the guy asks what the Great Elder is doing there. Since he has nothing left to lose, he can do whatever he wants. Piero says it's only natural that he should face punishment. But, before anything else, there is something he wants to ask. He questions what he did with Project Atlas. That moment, the young man is surprised and asks how he knows about that. The hooded man admits he knew about the theft for ages. He was just waiting to see if any partners showed up. But since the guy is acting alone, his real goal is still a total mystery. Sensing something is seriously off, he asks who the stranger really is. He knew all the Veritas elders and their unique magic, but this energy felt way more sinister than anything he had ever encountered. The stranger just smiles, mentioning how people called him a genius who rivaled Albert before that whole incident. They guess those rumors weren't lies after all, my friend. This clearly isn't going to end well. The guy gets attacked again, and suddenly, the stranger pulls something right out of his head. He drops unconscious instantly. Piero decides that if he won't talk, he'll just take the information for himself. He dives deep into the man's memories, searching for the location of Project Atlas. but finds something truly shocking: an intruder using dark magic. This is getting seriously messy. Since the Demon King died 500 years ago, dark mages have only existed in one specific place besides himself, the so-called Vulgar Republic. Honestly, I never expected those people to be the ones behind this. The Vulgar Republic rose after the monarchy fell, but nobody knows a dark elf is actually in charge. Her people were oppressed by humans for centuries, so he figured they were up to something. Still, they moved way faster than he ever expected. They're weak for now, but if they study dark magic and grow stronger, they could eventually become a force capable of rivaling the Baroque Empire. However, but it's not the right time yet. The Republic still needs more time to grow. If they build a hero-class giant, the Empire will definitely step in and crush them. There's no choice but to get the project back. While holding a weird green object, he shoves it right into the poor guy's ear. Suddenly the dude starts standing back up, but, man, he looks terrible. He actually looks like a zombie. He kneels immediately, and Pierrot says he planted a worm just in case. Anyway, they really need to get started on their plan soon. Back at the Lacan mansion, Hans is shocked the Count actually tried to assassinate the protagonist. That previous giant incident was probably their fault too. Roger thinks they're gearing up for a full territorial war. While everyone debates, the guy with glasses asks if taking in refugees is actually a good idea. They barely have enough gold to manage the land as it is. Feeding thousands of people would cost a fortune. Right at that moment, a sudden noise interrupts them. Without wasting a second, everyone rushes outside to see what's going on. It's the protagonist. Phillips asks where he's been this whole time, but then they see it. A massive pile of money right behind him. The kid casually explains that those are the Demon King's secret war funds. He says he found them hidden beneath a secret wing while inspecting the castle. Rogers asks if it's safe to use, worrying the Demon King might have cursed the gold. Of course, the guy with glasses isn't having it. He says they should just overcome the curse with pure willpower. This belongs to the Visconti of Lacan now. Even if the Demon King came back, he's not getting it back. It belongs to the Visconti of Lacan now, and the Demon King isn't getting a cent back. Meanwhile, Simon figures it was an emergency fund built using golems and monsters. Since they're taking in refugees, they really have no choice but to spend it. Anyway, financial problem solved. He asks Rogers if he has a moment to talk, because there is something he needs his help with. Then, the scene shifts elsewhere. Simon realizes that learning how magic has evolved in the 500 years since his death is... Simon thinks learning how magic has evolved in the 500 years since his death is incredibly urgent, but if that power is ever, if it's used against him, it would be bad. He needs a way to handle it. Roger was worried since the protagonist hadn't touched a sword since that incident. He's actually surprised the kid asked for a duel first, and the kid says it would be a shame if the heir to a warrior family couldn't swing a sword. Suddenly the kid charges at the knight captain. After blocking the strike, the captain admits he was worried since it's been so long since he handled a sword, but those concerns were totally unnecessary. His movements are better than ever, and he's definitely gotten a lot stronger. More importantly, he's actually reading his opponent's movements now. It's exactly what you'd expect from a descendant of the Lacan family. He must have been training in secret, but it's clearly still not enough, right? He mentions that in this situation, it's better to let the attack flow and land a counter, turning the whole fight around. The two keep sparring. Simon thought his past experience fighting countless knights would let him keep up to a certain extent, but the skill gap is just totally absurd. Roger says he's impressed by the improvement. His growth is actually frightening. At this rate, he might even defeat the Demon King from 500 years ago. Just like the hero Lacan's hearing that, the protagonist naturally gets pretty pissed off. Gripping his sword, he knows he can't fight on equal footing yet. Still, he needs to land at least one hit, or he won't be able to sleep tonight. He uses a physical enhancement skill and charges. They keep training until, at that very moment, Simon is suddenly surprised by something new. The kid starts glowing yellow, and Roger says he never expected him to move that fast. He asks if he was holding back before. Simon immediately recognizes that as the hero Lacan's sword aura. A golden sword aura is a transcendental level that nobody can ever imitate. There was obviously no way he could ever forget it. After all, he was killed by that exact ability 500 years ago. Even though centuries have passed, for him, it feels like it all happened just a year ago. Placing his hand on his neck, he tells Rogers not to hold back, or else he's going to regret it. The young fighter is shocked to see the main character using aura. Seeing the hero channel aura catches him off guard. She looks weak, but that power is the real deal. He doesn't hesitate, lunging forward to land a heavy blow right away. The fight rages on. A bit later, Roger calls an end to the session. The kid wants to keep going, but Roger insists he's done enough. Overdoing it is just dangerous. He's actually impressed, asking how the boy learned to use aura so easily without being taught. Hearing this, Simon panics, wondering if he accidentally let some of his demonic energy slip out. Then Roger adds that he clearly can't hide the Locke family bloodline running through his veins. But Simon feels like something is off. Aura is supposed to be man-made physical. Just wrapping a blade in dark, demonic energy shouldn't magically turn it into aura, right? He remembers that the assassin from before used aura too. Soon, the soldier mentions that with how fast he's leveling up, it's finally time. Starting tomorrow, he'll begin training him in the legendary golden sword skill. Our hero is stunned. He wonders if the very technique that crushed him in the past could actually become his own weapon now. But something doesn't add up. Isn't that skill only passed down to a single heir? Plus, Roger learned it without even being the family head. Roger just laughs, saying it looks like he forgot that part of the story too. He knows the truth all too well. The Demon King's curse meant the previous family heads lived very short lives, fearing their secret sword skills would be lost forever. An ancestor passed the techniques down to the most trusted knight commanders. Because of that choice, those commanders protect the Lacan legacy and serve as the family's strongest foundation. Hearing this, Simon figures that's how they survived all these years. He wonders if mastering this style would make him as powerful as the legendary warrior Lee. But Roger warns him it won't be easy. The second half of the skill holds supreme techniques lost 400 years ago. Still, just mastering the first half is enough to turn anyone into a true sword master. Looking at the situation, Simon never thought he'd be face to face with the exact same skill that once ended his life. Since Lacan is long gone, the golden sword is just another technique for him to master. He's definitely taking the chance to learn it. Time flies by, and soon a crowd gathers in the town square. A small child looks up as the princess arrives, thanking everyone for coming together. It has been over 10 years since they fled the kingdom of Olga and arrived in the monarch's territory. Over those years, they faced constant discrimination and cruelty under the Lord's tyranny. So many suffered while she failed to protect them or even speak up. Because of that, they've held on to a lot of bitterness toward her leadership while watching from the sidelines. But they can't stay trapped like this forever. Today, they are finally leaving this place for Lacan's territory. She made this choice herself, believing it's the only way to build a brighter future for every single one of them. She knows they're terrified of history repeating itself. Because of that, she won't force this path on anyone who has already been hurt too much. Still, she's asking them to trust her and follow her lead one more time. They can start a new chapter together if they just join her once again. Even as a princess, she actually bows low, and everyone finally agrees. They say they wouldn't just follow anyone blindly. He understands her struggles and sacrifices more than anyone. If she's the one making the call, then it's definitely the right way to go. With everything settled, the guy in glasses asks if he mentioned they're following her by choice. They are doing this of their own free will because of, well, she has nothing to worry about, right? Hearing those words, the girl says she is truly grateful. Just then, the guy announces they got a message from Lord Luke, or the transport is ready to go. Right then, the guy reports that Lord Luke has all the transport ready. So far, the Count hasn't noticed a thing, but he's still anxious. He wonders if it's actually possible to move this many people at once without being detected. Up until now, the Count is clueless about their plan, but he still asks if moving a massive crowd like this is safe. Suddenly, the old man shows up and tells everyone not to worry. Holding a box full of masks, he explains that he's already handled the details. Time passes, and a man looking down from above is confused. The refugee camp is a ghost town. He screams at the soldiers, demanding to know why they cleared everyone out when they were supposed to be watching them. The man says he had zero choice because a plague broke out in the sewers, and the guy holding a mask asks if he's talking about this. It's just a mask that mimics the plague. Honestly, it's pretty pathetic that a guy like him fell for a cheap trick like that. Imagine falling for a fake plague. It's beyond pathetic that he got played so is. Seeing this, the Count is absolutely furious and won't stop ranting about Princess Reina. After all his supposed generosity, she still betrayed him like this. If she gets caught, he'll never forgive her. Right then, a group appears to greet the Count. It's the Scorpion Cavalry, announcing they've returned from the front lines and are ready for backup. The Count smiles, saying the timing is perfect. He has a little job that needs their immediate attention. It seems like the heavens are on his side, and Princess Reina will seriously regret running away from him. This guy is totally unhinged. A short while later, the refugees are being moved, including all the children. One poor little kid says he can't walk another step, and the hooded man tells Victor that the people have reached their limit and suggests they rest for it. While just then Reina appears and agrees they should stop. Making sure everyone arrives safely and without any injuries is what matters most to her. A few minutes later, the refugees finally sit down to eat. Victor tells her to stop standing guard and let them take over so she can eat. If she collapses, the people will lose all hope. But Reina just sighs, saying everyone is suffering because she failed them. If she had only been stronger, they wouldn't be in this mess. Victor tells her not to talk like that. After all, she is their absolute pillar of strength. Everyone followed her because they know she would never, ever abandon them. Hearing those kind words, the girl simply gives her thanks. But right at that moment, a loud noise startles everyone, and a bunch of refugees immediately start running. A group of soldiers appears. Soldiers swarm in and start rounding up the refugees. Victor and the princess watch the chaos from afar, but it is not long before they end up surrounded. One of the Scorpion Knights tells the princess it is finally time for her to return home, ordering her to follow him obediently if she values the lives of her people. Victor asks if the man has any pride left as a knight, but the soldier says it is ironic coming from a rat who fled in the middle of the night. The old man snaps back, saying they were the ones who forced them onto this path. How? The old man says that they were the ones who forced them onto this path. However, the knight says that he was the one who escalated things by ignoring the count's generosity and taking in helpless refugees instead. He chose to be selfish and flee under cover of night, asking if that is how a saint behaves. Victor is furious, asking if he forgot what he did to his people by imposing high taxes and forcing them into hard labor. Victor asks how he can still talk so much nonsense, but the knight does not care. His orders are simple: capture Princess Reina. She has to choose to surrender so they can let the people go. Otherwise, every single person here is going to die together. Hearing that, the girl asks if they will free her people if she returns alone. Victor tries to stop her, but she just asks for an answer. The man swears on the name of the Scorpions that they will leave the refugees alone. The old man warns her she cannot fall for those words. She replies that she is the last ruler of the kingdom of Olga, so she cannot abandon everyone and flee alone without her people. This implies that she is the last ruler of the kingdom of Olga, so she cannot abandon everyone and flee alone without her people. They said she is the pillar of their strength, but without her people, she has no reason to exist. If it is for their sake, she is ready to sacrifice herself, asking Victor to take care of everyone. They all watch in silence as she prepares to go alone, accepting her fate without any regrets. However, there is still one single thing left on her mind. She never had the chance to properly thank Simon. Right after that, the soldier starts laughing, saying all her effort was for nothing. Now that they have the princess, he can deliver the count's final order: kill everyone immediately. The soldiers charge the citizens. Reina yells that was not the deal, but the guy says he never agreed to anything. Clearly, the man had been lying the entire time. Victor was not about to let that slide and charges at the soldiers. He was really fired up, but the Scorpion captain was not going to let him pass. He attacks the poor old man, mocking him, saying he was famous in his youth, but now he is just a weak. At that, the old man falls to the ground, wounded and defeated. The Scorpion captain says he wants to make sure Victor understands exactly what kind of situation he is in. He raises his sword, about to strike the old man again, but suddenly, at that very moment, a black flame appears. An explosion rocks the area at the same time, and everyone watches without understanding what is happening. But Reina already knows what it is. Simon appears, saying he is not sure what is going on, but judging by the situation, he does not need to be gentle. Victor is relieved, thanking Simon for showing up. But then the old man realizes he accidentally said the boy's name out loud. The surprised soldier realizes he has seen that face before. Is he not the young lord of Lacan Viscounty? It makes sense now. The princess stood still until she suddenly ran away at night, so he suspected someone was helping her, but it is just some idiot from a failing viscounty on the verge of ruin. Honestly, he feels sorry for the princess for needing help from someone like him. Right then, a bunch of soldiers rush toward our hero. Raising his hand, Simon tells him to answer his call. The ground begins to tremble as he orders his forces to eliminate every enemy standing before them. Immediately, an entire army of golems appears, surrounding the soldiers. The Scorpion captain says he has never seen so many giant golems at once. Who is this kid, and how did he do this? But it was already too late to ask any questions. The golem charges, and the fight turns ugly fast. The Scorpion captain tells his men not to panic because they are just golems. Their speed is nothing compared to a giant, so they still have a chance if they stay mobile. But Simon uses his puppet skills to control the golems. One monster punches the ground, sending rocks flying toward the soldiers. Within seconds, a huge part of the army is knocked out. The captain can't believe it, so he dismounts his horse. Grabbing the princess, he shouts for them to stop or he will kill her. However, Simon does not pay any attention to the threat. He charges the soldier and slams his face right into a tree, shattering his helmet. Simon grabs him by the neck and tells him not to bring up things that irritate him, or he might just kill him right now. Incredibly, that guy was still acting tough, asking if he really thought he would get away after doing this. The incredibly arrogant guy was still acting tough, asking if he really thought he would get away. The count obviously would never let this slide. Simon just says he already made it clear that he warned him. With that, the guy passes on to a better place. The princess watches all of this from afar, calling out to Simon. She asks how he got there. He tells her to just gather the refugees and hide for now. Reina keeps staring at the boy who is standing before the remaining soldiers. They are shocked, knowing that in a battle without giants, a mage can easily decide the final outcome. However, they had never heard of a mage literally controlling golems. It is as if they are facing the Demon King himself. At 8, that Simon says that from the moment they decided to fight him, They should have been prepared to risk their lives. He really does look like the Demon King himself. After hearing that, all the soldiers drop their gear and start hauling tail. But life isn't all sunshine and roses, is it? Life is tough, and Simon definitely isn't about to let these guys just walk away. He swears they're all dying right here, and then time just starts ticking by. Minutes later, the soldiers are wiped out. Simon looks at the princess and says the threat is gone for now, but more enemies are coming. He offers to lead her to the rafts, but a soldier suddenly blocks his path. They're thankful for the rescue, but tell him to stay away from Her Highness. They demand to know what kind of power he just used. Nobody ever heard of the Lacan family controlling golems like that. Plus, that magic didn't feel normal. It had a dark, sinister vibe. They even start wondering if it's actually forbidden black magic. His power felt totally different from normal magic, giving off a dark aura that reeked of black magic. They couldn't believe a noble knight's son would even have access to that. Watching the tension rise, Simon realizes he might have totally messed up. Losing his cool for a split second meant showing off his real power to way too many people. He let his anger get the best of him and exposed his secret. Honestly, that's really not like him. He figures it's probably just the lingering regrets from his past life weighing him down. The soldier speaks up, saying that even in an emergency, they can't just overlook what they saw. Then Sammy pipes up, asking if it wasn't this exact power kept everyone alive. They keep fighting about it. Right then, the princess starts getting really anxious and tells him to knock it off. She says the method doesn't matter since he saved their lives, and she's sure Simon would never touch black magic. But then, our guy shocks everyone. He says he won't lie about it anymore. What they just witnessed was, actually, dark magic of the Demon King Simon, who died 500 years ago. Wow, he just admitted that way too easily, didn't he? After that confession, everyone is naturally stunned. The soldier nervously asks if the Demon King has been brought back to life, but Simon tells him that isn't the case. He explains that a massive concentration of forbidden knowledge once threw the whole world into chaos. This legacy has just He says he's been physically weak since he was a kid, and even with his family's sword training, he was always falling behind. Whenever he felt like a failure, he'd visit the old Demon King's castle to look at his ancestors' trophies. Then, one day, he got lucky and found a hidden passage left by the Demon King himself. It led deep into the heart of the fortress, where he found everything the Dark Lord had ever built and stored away. Even though he was terrified of the unknown, that fear vanished once he saw what was inside. It was the only way to break past his natural limits. From that day on, he secretly mastered magic and golem control, leading to the power they just saw. He knows that as a hero's descendant, using the Demon King's strength is usually forbidden, but he was desperate. He needed that power to protect the things he cares about most. Even after hearing that, the soldier insists this kind of thing can't be forgiven. The old man gets pretty worked up. He points out they're only alive because of Simon, so they shouldn't be judging him. Looking at our boy, he says he doesn't care where the power comes from. He's just grateful for the protection and promises they'll keep this whole thing a secret. Simon thanks them for being so understanding about it. He's glad some people accept him, but it's clearly not enough to convince everyone, so he'll have to deal with that later. Next, Victor warns that the Count's hunters will be on them soon, so they need to move. Meanwhile, the furious Count is fuming because losing the princess and refugees wasn't bad enough. Now his elite scorpions have been wiped out too. His best cavalry unit was totally destroyed by a nobody, just some kid from a ruined estate. Simon notes that since even the Dark Knights failed, some nobles must be secretly backing their enemies now. Charging in without knowing the enemy's real strength is a suicide mission. Hearing that, the Count just snaps at him to shut up. He's not letting those idiots get away with this, so he orders a message sent to the Emperor immediately. He's absolutely livid, swearing that he'll make everyone involved regret the day they crossed him. Back at the Lacan estate, everyone is gathered around a table. News just arrived from a royal messenger. A territorial war between Manhwa and the Lacan region has been officially approved. Roger mentions that, with the Count's temper, this fight was going to happen eventually. Still, one thing doesn't make sense. The excuse for the war. They're claiming we attacked the Count's personal guards first. They keep debating. Simon says they can't get stuck on the details right now. They have to focus on surviving this mess. He asks for a report on their current military strength. Roger explains they've recruited some mercenaries from the refugee camps, but they're basically untrained and won't do much in a real fight. As for the giants, they tried to scavenge and fix up some old ones, but they ran out of time. Now, they've only got 3 of them working and ready for combat. Compared to the Count's massive army of giants, it's not even close to being enough. Then Ray raises her hand. She mentions they actually have another giant available. Phillips gets hyped, remembering how that giant performed in the arena. He's sure it'll be a massive help to them, but they're still missing a pilot to lead it. Raina tells them not to sweat it though, because Victor has plenty of experience piloting giants. The old man says that even though he retired from the battlefield years ago, you never truly forget those skills. He is determined not to be a burden and will give it his all. things were finally starting to clear up and get resolved. Rudy admits he hates to kill the vibe, but things look bad. The Count has at least 80 giants, and 5 of them are knight class. In modern warfare, those numbers and classes decide everything. The gap between a warrior class and a knight class giant is massive. It is literally like comparing a small child to a full-grown adult. It takes 10 warrior class giants just to match one single knight class in a fight. If they are outnumbered and outclassed, even an army of regular knights cannot make up for that kind of disadvantage. And if the enemy could not use their giants for some reason, they might actually stand a chance. The mate sage agrees that is true, but he wonders how they could possibly make all those giants useless. And Simeon says they simply need to force a situation where the giants cannot be deployed. As he knows the Lacan territory is surrounded by rough terrain. To the east and west, there are massive cliffs that make it impossible for a large army to pass through, and that leaves the enemy with only one real path to move through, which would be, that leaves only one option, specifically the Southern Sea. They will likely transport their giants by ship across the water, so they will set traps there and build coastal barriers to stop them from landing, while bombing their defenseless troops from a distance. Of course, they cannot ignore attacks from other directions, but they can plan for that together. They are at a numerical disadvantage, but that does not mean they should be afraid. Truly they are outnumbered, but they should not fear, because they have the Knights of Lacan led by Roger Zayol. Also, must not forget the legendary commander from the Kingdom of Olga. Each one of them is just as strong as anyone in the Monarch domains. As long as they stand together, they will win no matter what. With that, everyone gets pumped up, because it seems like the plan might actually work. Victor mentions they have seen plenty of miracles already, and this war will be no different. Philip says there is no time to waste and heads off to prepare for battle. As everyone splits up, our protagonist finally closes the door and sinks into his armchair. Man, the kid was not looking good at all. He realized he had pushed his mana way past his control, leaving his internal energy flow completely unstable. If this keeps up, he is in some deep trouble. Later, the scene shifts, and we see him creating a magic circle deep within his mind. He plans to perform a secret ritual where no one can find him. After being reincarnated into the Lacan family, his fragile mana circle, which was crippled by a family curse, absorbed dark energy and became a black circle. This let him surpass human limits, reaching a level 6 magic circle. But after the brutal battle with the Scorpion cavalry, he used so much mana that he nearly broke his own spirit. Now, that newly restored black circle is under immense strain and on the verge of shattering. To fix this, he needs a powerful being to refill his mana. Specifically, he needs a demon. Since ancient times, black mages have summoned demons, offering up their souls to strike a bargain. But his goal is different. He is not looking for a contract or to borrow power. Instead, he will absorb the demon itself, stealing every bit of its power and dark energy. Of course, without using magic, taming a high-class demon would be tough. So, he decided to summon a low-class one first. Right now, the only thing left is to find a sacrifice. Normally, people would use a beast or even a human for that. However, there is something even more suitable for this, which is the mage's blood, which has more than enough spiritual energy. Regardless, he refuses to sacrifice innocent lives just to achieve his own goals. In this case, he will not take innocent lives for his own ends. From the perspective of the Demon King who wanted to wipe out humanity, that might sound ridiculous. And thinking back, there were actually people who followed those same ideals. The cult of darkness who worshipped the Demon King also felt deep disillusionment with humanity, but at the same time, they never lost their respect or duty toward life. Since his reincarnation, he has not heard a word about them. He assumes they vanished when he was defeated. Anyway, since his condition is getting worse, he needs to move fast. He begins the incantation, and then you can tell something bad is about to happen. Right then, 3 demons appear. Simon thinks they look decent, but they are only low-ranking demons. He could easily handle them even without using any magic. But at that very moment, the cave starts to shake, and it looks like there are way more than 3 demons. At that very moment, a massive beast appears, and with a roar, it says its name is Sebastian, the master of the demon realm's endless suffering. It asks if he is ready to pay the price for summoning it. Simon, if he is prepared to pay the price for the summoning. Simon did not understand a damn thing. He was sure he used the circle for low-ranking demons, Simon did not understand a damn thing. He was sure he used a circle for low-ranking demons. In his current state, fighting a demon like this is impossible. But he cannot let them escape, because if they reach the territory, they will cause absolute chaos. So he cannot let them escape, because if they reach the territory, they will cause total chaos. So there is no choice but to erase the summoning circle and force them back. The beast then asks if he is afraid after seeing his power, telling him not to worry. If he offers his soul, it'll be a painless end. However, Simon says he was never afraid for a single second. He was only busy thinking about how to destroy them. At that very moment, one of the demons lunges at our boy, but he dodges. The battle continues as Medusa tries to strike, but he manages to block the hit. Since life is not exactly sunshine and rainbows, his sword literally turns to stone. The kid had no time to catch his breath, realizing that at this rate, he cannot even reach the magic circle, let alone escape. He wonders what to do, but suddenly gets an idea. He remembers there is a river up on the surface. Without wasting any time, he starts climbing the crystals. Right then, the demon tries to attack him, just as a massive explosion goes off. Suddenly a huge torrent of water starts pouring down from the ceiling. Our boy stayed perched on the crystals, thinking that even using a spell is putting way too much strain on his body. However, now that they are stuck, he can erase the circle, right? And using magic is putting way too much strain on his body. But now that they are stuck, he can erase the circle, right? But unfortunately, the high-ranking demon still has not been defeated. It tells him to stop fooling around and just surrender. At that moment, the boy stands before the monster, using an enhancement skill. The beast, he still has not given up. The kid says there is no reason to quit, because this body has already survived countless battles. Changing the subject, he asks if the demon really thought he would not notice. Then he charges at the creature. It yells at him to wait because it has changed its mind. If he stops now, it will accept him as a subordinate and forget everything. If he swears loyalty, it'll even share its power. But Simon does not seem to care about any of that, does he? He lands a direct hit on the thing. A short while later, as the smoke clears, Simon says, just as I expected, that thing was low class. Man, just looking at this creature's face, you can tell it's destined to be the mascot. Simon calls its true form pathetic and the monster demands to know how he saw through it. Simon says the disguise worked, but a high-class demon failing to dodge a simple water jet seemed off. He decided to take a gamble right then. He knows they're kind because he's fought them many times before. Furious, the monster says that even like this, it can still kill him. He knows their patterns because he has fought them many times before. The monster snaps back, saying it can still finish him off. Hearing that, Simon tells it to go ahead and try. Right then, the monster freezes in shock, wondering how a mere human possesses the aura of a demon king. He replies that it's because he simply absorbed one. Switching topics, he asks if it knows the demon king named Simon. Changing the subject, he asks if it knows the demon king called Simon. Hearing that name, the creature suddenly realizes exactly who is standing right there. As our protagonist lets the creature go, he says he didn't expect to be recognized, especially since the thing is going to die no matter what. Right then, the monster grabs his leg, begging for mercy. The monster clings to his leg, begging for mercy. It promises to devote its soul to him if spared, claiming it was once the greatest phantom thief in the demon realm. Plus, it's a pro at medicine and has great alchemy skills, which means it will definitely be useful. It mentions having medicine and alchemy skills that will be helpful. After hearing all that, the boy, Simon, approaches the cat, whispering something. When the monster says that's totally possible, the boy finally lets it go and, raising his hand, he said, as he accepts it as his familiar, Sebastian gives his thanks, promising to serve him with all his heart. And at that very instant an explosion happens. And Simon says a cat should wear a collar that fits. He explains that if it tries to betray him, that collar will kill it. So, it better behave. Look, the poor guy's plan went down the drain because he thought he could escape later. Well, the poor guy's plan went down the drain because he really thought he'd be able to escape. Later, a few minutes later, the cat asks what he's doing now. He replies that since the contract is done, he needs to get back to business. Just look. Later, the cat asks what he's up to. He says that since the contract is settled, he's getting back to work. Looking at those other demons, he tells them to stay back if they don't want to get caught in the middle of it. He throws those claws at the demons, and honestly, I can't even describe what happened there. Sebastian, watching from afar, wonders if he's really going to be okay after this. The scene shifts as our protagonist is busy destroying a tree. He thinks he can use six-circle magic Isolé now. After absorbing that demon, he summoned and drained others for days. Thanks to that, the black circle is recovering nicely. Because of that, the black circle is recovering well. Even so, he completely ruined his clothes, and if anyone sees him like this, it'll definitely cause some trouble. Right then, Phillips appears saying he's been looking everywhere for him. Changing the subject, he asks what happened to his clothes and wonders if he got hurt, but our boy tells him not to worry and asks what's going on. He replies that a message arrived saying the Monarch Count's army was approaching the territory. He explains that a message arrived about the Monarch Count's army approaching. They're coming from the southern sea and the northern forest, which means an attack from two sides at once. A short while later, the scene shifts. It shifts to that place. The soldiers, they kept moving, heading straight toward the territory while looking through a A soldier mentions it's unlike the Count to mobilize an entire army just to wipe out a tiny Viking. A soldier says it's overkill to mobilize an army for one Viking. The guy with the eye patch replies that even if a tiger hunts a rabbit, they've escaped by luck too many times. That is why he needs to completely crush their will to resist now. Either way, it's better not to underestimate them, since some are stronger than expected. Hearing that, the guy with the weird hair thinks he's just acting tough after losing in the arena. He wonders why the Count gave that idiot another chance. But anyway, the Viscounty used its head a little. They formed a barrier up front, and the soldiers were ready to looking off. Without wasting any more time, they move out to do exactly that. They aren't going to wait around any longer. And the guy with a small hairstyle says they really are trying hard. But those attacks weren't enough. Starting to pilot his giant, he easily deflects all the projectiles. The soldiers are shocked, realizing they're facing a rune knight. The guy with a smile says, no matter how hard they try, it's all in vain. Rune knights are specifically those who can freely manipulate both staffs and swords. This is the first time they had seen a monster like that. And there was a time, I remember, when they were seen as total failures, but with the rise of giant technology, that all changed. When they are linked to mana stones, their power is amplified. They become monsters capable of using magic as strong as any tower mage. Meanwhile, that smug guy was bragging about how hard they worked to stop the transport ship. But he was acting so arrogant, claiming that stopping the ship was totally useless against him. Raising his staff, he launches an ice attack from inside the vessel. Without wasting any time, he follows it up and immediately fires off another spell, hurling a massive pile of rocks toward the defenses of the The guy was acting like a total hotshot, talking big and saying that every obstacle in his path had finally been cleared. The way was open to enter with the giants and starting the invasion of the Vikings. He orders them to wipe everyone out while the giants keep stomping forward. The mage says it looks like finishing this fight will be way easier than he first expected. It would be more fun if they actually fought back a little longer. And the patch guy watching the situation thinks something is definitely off. So many giants are closing in on the castle, but they haven't sent a single person out. He wonders what they could be planning. Meanwhile, Hans was on top of the walls, aiming those cannons at the giants. Obviously, that wouldn't do much on its own, but, my friend, there was a secret. There was something extra inside that ammo. Suddenly, the giants get soaked in a strange liquid. They wondered what that stuff even was. It was totally weird and completely unbelievable. That liquid made the giants just stop dead in their tracks. This was the big chance the group needed. They start raining down a series of heavy attacks. The scene then shifts elsewhere with Sebastian, who says it is a complete mess. He wanted to know why the protagonist had rushed him so much, and now it finally makes sense. A few days ago, the kid made a weird request. He wanted a glue that would never come off no matter what happened. Of course, something like that is totally impossible. In all his hundreds of years, he had never heard of anything so ridiculous. But somehow that invention actually exists because the kid simply wouldn't leave the poor man alone. Unbelievably, it actually exists and works. The kid simply would not leave him alone. He just would not leave the guy alone anyway. Since he did all the work, the result was pretty obvious. In just seconds, the tide of the battlefield had completely changed. One of the blacksmiths watching from a distance can't believe it. He says he has never heard of anything like that before. He asks if that is some secret technique passed down in his family. But that was not enough, because there are still many giants left, especially those two in the center, who are definitely new Knight-class giants from the Monarch army. The pretty boy says they are resisting more than expected. But, back to the pretty boy, he says they are putting up a fight, but it still won't be enough. Casting yet another spell, he fires it at the castle gate. But right then, Phillips appears on a giant and blocks the whole attack. The mage is clearly shocked by this. He is surprised that such a strong fighter has finally appeared, but he thinks he will still win, right? He makes his move, and Phillips manages to block the hit again. He seems to be having some real difficulty. He feels like his speed is exactly the same as his enemies right now. On the other side, the eye patch guy says he finally showed up. He has definitely been waiting for this day for a long time. The boy is shocked. He thought the guy was fired, but he is still working. And then the man says he got a golden opportunity if he destroys him. This time, he is really going to win the fight. Hearing that, Phillips says it is a shame he revealed himself. He asks if he told them everything, and if his people are all professional liars. But now there is no more time for talking. The duel starts right away. The mage just watches the fight from the sidelines, muttering that he will just deal with whoever is right in front of him. The giant stares down the mage while holding his sword. Our pretty boy says he knew the Lacan family was broke, but facing such outdated junk is disappointing. Fact, they are poor is one thing, but this outdated junk is disappointing. Victor, piloting the giant, says not to underestimate him. As the last captain of the Volga Knights, he is going to fight with his life on the line. The mage looks surprised for a second, then starts laughing his head off, claiming he never expected to hear that family name ever again. Even so, Captain Victor is just as rigid as ever. The old man is shocked and asks how the mage knows him. The mage just asks if he really doesn't recognize his voice. His name is Cain. They rejected one of the Knights of Volga. A bit later, the scene moves to the north of the Lacan territory. Our hero watches from above and sees the fighting has already started. He is glad he sent his troops out early, thinking it was a smart move because the Count grew powerful through endless border wars. He is definitely not someone you want to mess with. Luckily, he expanded his power through non-stop wars and isn't someone to underestimate. Luckily, most giants were sent south, leaving only normal soldiers in the north. That's why stationing the troops there was definitely the right move. Of course, only the giants went south, leaving just regular soldiers in the north. Sending troops there was the right call. Even with few men, keeping them together was tough, and moving them into the deep forest should have been nearly impossible. But that problem was solved another way while the fighting continued. The guy in the bandana says this is his chance to pay back the young master for his help. It turns out these are the same villagers from before, and Simon is just glad the bandit training actually worked. Since they are used to real fighting, they are proving to be incredibly useful, but that they know real combat and are being surprisingly helpful. But life isn't that easy. Right then, for soldiers corner a bandit, but another person suddenly shows up and, against all odds, he actually manages to dodge every single attack and counter, hitting one of the soldiers hard. That guy wasn't playing around. That was Rogers, telling him to stay sharp and not to push too deep into the enemy lines. The boy watching the fight realizes things are looking up. However, if this drags on too long, things will get ugly, so there is no choice but to move fast. Right then, our hero lets out a whistle that rings across the whole battlefield. No one knows what is happening, but Rogers looks up and knows it is the signal, which means, looking up, he knows it is the signal, meaning all the prep work is finally finished. He starts ordering the entire army to start their move since all the preparations are finally complete. Retreating the soldiers are totally caught off guard. They are surprised but start following them anyway. A bit later, deep in the woods, the soldiers find themselves completely surrounded. One of the enemy soldiers looks smug and says this will be their grave. Meanwhile, Simon smugly tells them they are as good as dead. Simon's soldiers stay silent while Rogers says the enemy has it all wrong. Their main goal has already been achieved after all. They aren't the ones who are actually cornered. Then, a soldier grabs a torch and lights something, and he lights it up. Above them, there were dozens of barrels. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the area, and debris completely blocks the path for the soldiers. With that, our hero's troops are trapped inside. The enemy says it was a pointless effort, but then Roger explains that the Lacan people never come to these mountains. They are warned from a young age to stay away. He wonders, never come here because they are warned from childhood to stay away. He asks if the soldier even knows why. It is simply because it is a monk's nest, and in all this time, out of everyone who ever entered that place, not one single person has ever returned alive. Meanwhile, Simon watches from above, thinking everything is going exactly to plan. Now he just needs to wrap things up in the south. At this rate, it might be easier than he thought. At that exact moment, he looks ahead and sees smoke. Realizing it is rising from the west, he already has a good idea of what is going on. Assuming there is another part of the army, he keeps pushing through the forests, taking down a few soldiers whenever he runs into them. At that, dropping soldiers as he finds them. Right then, another huge explosion goes off and the enemy moving thinks he didn't expect them to send troops from that side. He definitely underestimated the count. This is taking way longer than he planned. He is going to be late getting to the south no matter what. And he definitely underestimated the count. All he can do now is hope everyone hangs in there. The scene then cuts to Victor, who is struggling against that mage. The sorcerer taunts him, saying they lasted longer than he thought, but it is all over now. He claims they can never fight on equal ground using a piece of junk like that. And if he had just stayed, well, they cannot fight fair against a wreck like that. If he had just stayed quiet in the monarch's lands, none of this would have gone down. Honestly, the guy is still just as hard to read as ever. Right after, be quiet in the monarch's territory, and none of this would have happened. He is still impossible to understand. Right after that, Victor points out that he swore loyalty to the kingdom of yet now he is nothing but the count's pawn, asking, if he has any shame as a knight, calling him a total opportunist like always. Soon after, the boy claims the count actually recognizes his real talent, and thanks to him, he is living his best life. Hearing that, Victor asks if he has been holding a grudge all these years, but the boy did not want to hear another word. Summoning one more of his secret abilities, he was ready to strike the old man when a flashback hits from 15 years ago. The same young man is complaining that he did way better in the combat trials, demanding to know why the other guy got promoted. He is sure something is rigged. Right then, Victor shows up and asks what the deal is. The boy insists there was a mistake with the results, and Victor. The boy claims the promotion results were wrong, but Victor asks if he used magic during the exam. Using anything besides sword skills in a duel is an automatic disqualification. Even so, the boy argues back, asking if he should not be valued more for having a rare talent. No one else's. Victor just says the test was strictly for swordsmanship and leaves it at that. The young man then asks if Victor is blocking his promotion because he cannot use magic himself, wondering if the old man is just jealous and threatened by his superior talent. Hearing all that, the old man simply turns his back and walks away. Back in the present, Victor was still hanging on, and the boy, looking shocked, says the outcome will be the same. This is the power he once mocked, asking if he finally sees his true skill now. In any case, he will die by the very power he once ignored. And then Victor says that he has not changed one bit since the start. I do not know how. The guy suddenly starts dodging every single blow, charging straight at the kid. Of course, the mage was not about to just stand there, so he summons that ice spell again, managed to pierce the giant, but the old man still had not given up. He says it looks like the kid has not practiced his swordplay at all since back then. He asks if he did not make it clear that in a knight's duel, spacing is everything. Now he is inside his guard. He literally slashes the guy with his blade. Neg. Victor admits that he had actually recognized his talent long ago. Few have what it takes to be a unique knight, but he was tough because relying purely on magic is a dead end. He could have been the potential for greatness, but relying only on spells limits a warrior. He could have become a legendary knight, and honestly, seeing him like this is just a real shame. A truly great knight, and it is a tragedy. I really wanted to go help Phillips right now, but in this rough shape, there is no way he can move. And now there is no other choice, right? Everything rests in the boy's hands, who meanwhile, boy's hands, who kept on fighting that golden knight. The situation was not looking good for our heroes at all. Suddenly an explosion rocks the area. Phillips gets slammed against the wall, and the golden knight taunts him, asking where that power from the arena went. He even says he overestimated him. Phillips snaps back that he is way too cocky for someone who lost twice already, and observing, as he talks big despite those 2 losses, the boy watches the scene and thinks that it is as if that guy turned into a totally different person overnight. He wonders what he should do now, right? Checking inside the guy's cabin, he realizes this thing is seriously impressive. It looks like he was using some magical stone the Count gave him, and using a few more of them, the guy just starts glowing. Phillips realizes he is way stronger now. The guy, acting all smug, says there is no point in stalling. He is going to end this fight with one single blow, raising his heavy axe. He was ready to strike, but Phillips bolts instantly, thinking that Phillips runs for it, realizing the guy's power is huge, but his mobility is trash. This should give him the speed advantage, but since life is never easy, the guy actually manages to catch up. At that exact moment, Phillips catching up like that, Phillips could not believe how many new abilities the guy had gained. But even so, he has to keep fighting, since there is no time to think. They keep time to think, to keep trading blows, and Phillips manages to spot an opening, but it does not last long. The armored guy grabs the leg of Phillips's giant, and after throwing, the armored guy grabs the giant's leg and throws him. At that same moment, an explosion happens, and Phillips looked like he was trapped. The massive difference in power is obvious. He thought he had the edge in speed, but even that was matched. He assumes that the power gap is huge. He thought he was faster, but the enemy matched him. He worries he cannot defend his territory now. Suddenly a flashback appears where Roger warns him that the phantom sword has a fatal flaw. Attacking at high speeds makes his trajectory way too predictable and easy to detect. If he does not find a way to fix that flaw, others will see right through his unique skills. Phillips argues that changing direction mid-move will just slow him down way too much. However, the knight tells him not to sweat it, as this specific method should be more than enough to fix the issue. Next, Eye Patch Guy says he is tough, but this ends right now, once and for all. Phillips can, but it is over right now. Phillips stands there, not moving a single muscle, and at that same moment, manages to dodge the strike, and with a leap, starts circling the guy, apparently getting much faster. Seeing what was right then, Eye Patch admits his main armor won't hold up much longer either way. It is happening. Eye Patch says his main armor is failing, but Philip can struggle all he wants. After all, he reads every move. I can read every single move, he yelled. He tries grabbing Philip, but this time, the boy is faster. Surprised he can't keep up, Philip takes the chance and finally lands a hit. He remembers his uncle saying that against most enemies, a slight change is all it takes. Just a slight trajectory shift makes the phantom sword ability almost impossible to react to. Luckily, this guy is a total amateur. Eye Patch hasn't given up though. As long as his mana stone recharges, he is fine. However, right at that moment, another massive enemy appears. A giant appears impaling the guy in golden armor. He asks how many mana stones he will waste on that loser. He shouldn't have given him a second chance, tossing the poor guy away. throwing the poor guy far away. From now on, you face me. From now on, he will face him alone. And look at that tits the Count. Those idiots couldn't even take over a second-rate territory like this, forcing him to step in personally. He calls him nothing but a bunch of useless fools. As the golden armor guy hits the ground, a massive explosion rocks the area. Philip watches in total shock. He watches all of this in surprise. The guy just killed his own men. He stands before that monster, stating his duty remains the same no matter who he faces. He won't let him pass. Hearing this, the Count just laughs and says he's probably bluffing. He wants to know if Philip really thinks he can stop him in that state. There is only one way to find out, right? And without wasting time, he charges the Count unbelievably. The guy doesn't even dodge the blows. Since life isn't all sunshine and roses, nothing has any effect. The boy looks on in surprise, and the Count uses one hand to try landing a blow on Philip. He manages to dodge by a hair, of course, and the guy can, naturally, it was by a hair. The guy keeps up his string of attacks and finally lands a hit. Apparently, just one strike like that caused massive damage to the boy. And right then, the whole giant shatters into pieces. Philip is all. Then, the entire giant shatters to pieces. Philip also looks pretty injured, and soon after that, he ends up defeated. Hans was watching the whole thing from afar. With no other choice, he tells them to prep the artillery, but there wasn't even time. At that moment, the Count begins piercing through a wall. The whole place was shaking as the wall breaks apart, finally being completely destroyed. A short time later, Hans was in the middle of the rubble, saying that even so, they still couldn't let that thing through. Unfortunately, finally, most of the soldiers had already been defeated, and at that very moment, the Count, looking down, he realizes a giant is holding him. It's Victor, and he won't let him take another step. Count Monarch asks what he thinks he can do with a broken machine to stop him once and for all. One after another they keep getting on his nerves, saying this situation is pathetic. Even after that giant had been completely smashed, Victor was still holding his leg. By then, the guy was already losing his patience, and with a kick, he literally sends the poor guy flying away. He even falls right out of the giant, and the dude doesn't seem to be doing too well. The Count, now furious, goes after him. He says he was going to leave, but he has changed his mind. He's going to end all of this here and now, stating he'll send the princess with him soon. The situation looks bad, and at that very moment, the hero appears to save the day, saying he was invading this land as if it were his own, destroying everything. He hopes the Count is ready to face the consequences. Observing the situation, the Count thinks he has never heard of anyone controlling so many golems. He says that now he understands everything. This must be the young master of Lacan. He asks if this is the power used to defeat the Scorpion cavalry. This energy resembles the Demon King's magic. It's impossible that a noble heir would mess with this. If this goes public, House Lacan will surely be erased from history. However, public House Lacan is about to be wiped from history. But the protagonist says that it's not happening because he has no intention of letting him leave this place alive. The Count gets furious hearing that, asking if he really thinks a pathetic golem like that could stand against his massive giant. And at that very moment, Simon uses those claw abilities again to completely restrain the giant. He wants to finish him off right now, but unfortunately, he is almost out of mana and can only hold him for a short time. Somehow, he has to settle everything using only his golem. Right then, every golem fires a laser beam. An explosion erupts, and the giant is still standing. He says that this is pathetic, asking if he was bragging that much just to do that. However, Simon says it is not over yet, and right then his golems end up completely surrounding him, of course. The Count thinks that will not work, but there is something different about those golems. At that exact moment, a huge explosion happens right inside. Simon watches everything from afar, thinking it was good he put a powerful fourth circle explosion spell in the golem just in case. It will take some time to build another one. Looking ahead, he realizes that the guy is still completely intact. He says if the goal was to annoy him, it worked. He should not expect to die as the protagonist is surprised, wondering what that giant is made of. Resisting an explosion like that is incredible, but looking underneath the giant, he more or less realizes what is happening. He says that he does not seem calm enough to talk so much. Drawing his sword, he asks if he forgot he is a descendant of the hero bloodline. Seeing this, the guy laughs, asking if he will face a giant with his bare hands. But the kid is taking this very seriously. Charging at the giant, he says he will only know if he tries. Thus, the giant tries to land an attack, but Simon manages to dodge. He thinks that it is clear that the explosion slowed the giant down a lot. In this state, he will definitely be able to find a way to win. Right then, he manages to land his attack, but unfortunately, that armor is incredibly tough. The giant defense is strong. The giant says that this is a pointless fight, and at that very moment he launches an attack, our boy manages to defend himself. Our boy manages to hold his ground. However, he is thrown upward with zero time to even breathe. The giant keeps attacking, and life is not easy for our boy. He manages to dodge the blows, thinking he just needs to hold on. His energy is almost exhausted, and looking further ahead, he realizes the giant seems to be damaged. The Count says he is running away like a rat as usual. Losing his patience, he summons his maximum power. The guy is not messing around, launching a bunch of attacks on the ground. However, at that very same moment, he is surprised. After all, the kid has simply disappeared, and Simon, looking all smug, says that he hates to admit it, but this specific swordsmanship even defeated elite warriors that possessed ninth circle mana. It is a ridiculously powerful skill that seems to work every single time. Apparently, the giant is not able to move anymore, and so Simon, taking advantage of the situation, charges at the guy. Right then, he manages to move his arm, thinking that he managed to hit the protagonist, but the kid managed to dodge. Using the hero aura, he lands an attack. Meanwhile, the Count cannot believe he has been defeated by a brat. The giant system is not working, and the guy says this is not how it was supposed to end. And with no choice, he had to climb. Sliding down that monstrosity, he starts running. He yells that things won't end like this, watching the whole thing unfold. Running off, he swears it's not over. Simon realizes he needs to catch him fast, but unfortunately, luck isn't on his side. Simon was totally drained of energy and couldn't even move. He was so close. He was out of gas and couldn't move a muscle. He almost had him, but now he's escaping. If he gets away, it's bad. That guy will be a massive threat later. Right then, Rogers shows up and apologizes for being late. Simon just looks up. Suddenly, Rogers appears and says sorry for the delay. Simon tells him they need to grab the monarch immediately, but the man, Rogers, says not to worry. Just then, somehow, the monarch trips over his own feet, and a voice asks a question. Someone asks where he's going in such a rush. The people standing there are familiar. It's the rest of the villagers, and they're asking if he missed them. The villagers ask if he missed them. The guy snaps, saying scum like them can't stop him. Then Raina steps forward. Raina appears, explaining these people weren't even treated like humans in their home. They lived in constant fear of death and had never even properly met each other before now. The Count claims he did everything just to win her heart, begging for forgiveness because he went too far. She snaps back, saying he owes everyone an apology, not just her. It's totally shameless. He keeps pleading for mercy, but it's way too late for regrets. Simon watches the whole drama from a distance, thinking it's a perfect ending for a fool like him. From a distance, he calls it a fitting end for a moron. Changing the subject, he asks if the evacuation went okay. Rogers confirms they won the war. Even the invasion routes, Rogers says the war is over. Those invasion routes they worried about are safe now with barely any damage, all thanks to the Volganites. The invasion routes are secure thanks to the Volganites. Simon asks for an update on Phillips and Victor, and Rogers gives him the news. Their giants took a beating, but they're both alive. While Simon held off the Count, Rogers moved them to safety. Even the mercenaries are busy helping the soldiers down from the war right now. He shouldn't worry about anything and just go get some rest. But Rogers tells him to rest, but Simon refuses. He can't just relax while his soldiers are still out there on the field. Hearing those words, Rogers realizes Simon didn't just save a dying nation. He's still thinking of others even when he can barely stand. It proves one thing clearly. Rogers thinks about how Simon saved a broken nation and still worries about his men while he can't barely stand. He's convinced that he's the reincarnation of Lord Lacan. He's the incarnation of Lord Lacan. Little does he know, this is actually the Demon Lord. Cut to the imperial capital, Nemesis. A king looks at a man, totally shocked. Count Monarch actually lost. The guy says it's truly a shame. Noticing that none of the noble houses moved an inch, the king is stunned. Seeing that none of the noble houses made a move, the king asks how a family in ruins with no help defeated an army dozens of times larger than their own. He finds it hard to believe. He asks how a ruined family with no help beat an army that huge. Does he really expect a king to believe a story like that while watching this situation? Looking at him, the man thinks the king has always been a pretty chilling guy. The report says refugees from the Volga kingdom moved to the Lacan territory before the war. That means elite knights were likely among them, but there's a crazier rumor too. Those elite knights were likely there. But a shocking new rumor is spreading about who really won the battle. The one who took down Count Monarch was actually the young lord of that land. Hearing that news, the king is stunned. He asks if that idiot wasn't just dying in bed a few weeks ago. The informant says the kid is a master of both swords and magic. He even fought Count Monarch alone in a giant and won. It looks like those rumors about him being sick were just fake news to hide the power. The king is shocked, wondering if the Lacan family cursed is even still a thing at this point. Even if Custer betrayed him, or even if the curse was gone, fighting a giant unarmed is still completely insane. He thought the Lacan family's famous sword skills were just exaggerated legends from over 500 years ago. He says that territory is growing too powerful. If Lacan is hiding its strength, they must be preparing to oppose the throne and reclaim their former glory. No doubt they intend to rule again. They're clearly aiming for their old glory by secretly recruiting those former Vulganites to their side. The king wonders if there is actually any way to stop the Lacan family's rise before it's too late for everyone. Then, the man suggests a different move entirely. He suggests they should just recruit him instead. The king asks if he means drafting him into the army, and the guy says that is exactly the plan. By law, every man must serve 2 years in the army once they turn 8. The king thinks it's a brilliant plan, since a lord won't dare act out while serving. The king agrees it's a smart move to keep him in line. With that settled, the plan is in motion. The king says the man knows exactly what he wants. He orders a royal decree to be sent to Lacan, offering formal congratulations on their big victory in the war. An imperial decree was sent to the Lacan Viscounty, with congratulations on their victory in the territorial war. Back in Lacan, Phillips apologized for the delay, having just finished the task the young master gave him. He then asked if Phillips kept apologizing for being late, because he had just finished the task the young master gave him. He asked if the meeting had started. Looking around at the group, they definitely didn't seem to be doing very well. Phillips, he asked why they weren't throwing a party for winning the battle. After Rogers explained the whole situation to the boy, he was just stunned, just like everyone else at that very moment. Our hero shows up. He asks why everyone looks so depressed, wanting to know if someone actually died or something like that. Then Phillips asks what they are even supposed to do now. Lemur territory is way too massive for them to manage. They are already struggling with the refugees from Vol, and now they will have 10 times more people to handle. At this rate, nothing good is going to happen. But our hero tells them to relax since he already has a plan. Shortly after, in the public square of Lemur territory, the protagonist stood in the middle of the crowd. He started giving a speech, saying that they must already know that Lemur territory has been annexed to the Lacan. That means, from now on, whatever decisions he makes as lord, they must follow. Everyone starts to argue, shouting that they expected the House of Heroes would treat them much better. But right away, they keep arguing, shouting that they expected better treatment. The protagonist tells him to be quiet so he can announce the new policies for Lemur territory. Basically, he wants to turn Lemur into a free city. Everyone is shocked, stunned, wanting to know exactly what that means. Someone realizes it means there will be no more trade restrictions anywhere in the Empire. Lemur, centered around its port, this place has the potential to become a massive transportation hub. But until now, trade was restricted to Count Monarch's domain. Even if people wanted to expand, the costs were just too high. That environment killed the city's growth, and that is exactly why he intends to return that opportunity to them, the rightful owners of this land. With their own hands, they can turn Lemur into the Empire's greatest trade center. Hearing that with their own hands, they can make Lemur the Empire's biggest commercial center. Everyone is shocked. One man says it sounds great, but it just means more work while the Lord takes everything in taxes. Our boy asks if he knows the tax percentage he used to pay. The guy says it was around 40%, raising it. Our boy asks if they know the tax percentage they used to pay. The guy says it was around 40%, raising his hand. The kid casually says he is only going to charge them 4%, asking if that is enough. Of course, everyone is stunned. Everyone is stunned. Simon thinks that if management is tough, he just needs to inspire motivation and let them grow on their own. After all, Lemur has tremendous potential. Once it prospers, even a small tax rate of 5% would be an absurd sum. Everyone starts to trust him, becoming happy with their new leader. Thinks that since administrative costs have been basically zero, it means it is all pure profit. The kid absolutely loves that. With that, a bit of time passed. Raina says it is a bold move for him to create a free city. Simon says he wants to believe in the potential of Lemur's people, even with many problems left to solve. Says he always makes such surprising choices. Then, Simon looks around at the scenery and asks what this place used to be. The girl, smiling, says she liked it. She says she loved this place when she lived in Lemur. Just like the Demon King's castle is for him, this view brings her peace, though she isn't sure why. Turning back to him, she thanks him for saving the Volga people. Everyone from the Viscounty fought in her place, and for that, she truly wanted to thank him. Simon simply says he only did what had to be done. Besides, the Volga's people only held out because she stayed so strong. Then Raina says Simon is a remarkable person, mentioning that the rumors claiming he was a frail person struck by illness were a complete lie. After all, the real Lord Simon she's come to know is firmer and stronger than anyone she has ever met, an eye who never turns away from those who need help without asking for a thing in return. It is no wonder everyone calls him the reincarnation of the hero Lacan. Simon says they only think that because they don't know he used dark magic. If they knew the truth, things would be different. However, Raina says it doesn't matter because there is absolutely no way they would ever follow the same dark path as the Demon King. Simon starts feeling pretty uneasy. He explains that he found the diary inside the Demon King's castle. It was a record of his whole life. He was actually a mage from the Iberti's magic tower, kinder and more hardworking than anyone. But everything changed when his true love died. He turned to forbidden magic and gained power no human should ever have. In the end, he was just one man fighting every nation on the continent alone. A man who stood alone against the entire continent. After saying all that, Simon keeps the rest secret, because he always thought she was that man's wife, and maybe she would understand just a little. The two of them remain there in silence. Then Simon speaks. He says it's hard to believe that story, and honestly, he gets that. So then asks if the others know. Simon says no, because it would be way too hard for them to accept. He isn't saying the Demon King was right, but the guy had a side the world never saw. In that moment, he doesn't think every choice was right, but there was a hidden side to him. Simon goes quiet again, feeling like he said too much. He asks her to just forget it, but the girl, realizing he shared too much and asking her to forget what he said, the girl simply says she understands, and Simon tells her she doesn't have to agree or even believe him, and he would understand if she didn't. Then Raina says, Simon says she doesn't have to agree or believe him, and he'd understand if she didn't. Raina says she doesn't believe the diary, but she believes in our hero and whatever he believes in, even the Demon King himself. She believe in it too. Later that afternoon, a nervous guard mentions he thought he could finally go home now that the war is over. Since most of the men were sent to repair the walls, there isn't much left to do. Right at that very moment, the two hear a rustle and realize something is hiding in the bushes. At the same time, a soldier suddenly collapses. Someone appears behind the poor guy and knocks him out cold as well. The mysterious man who did it watches the scene, wondering if this was really the place where Princess Raina was hiding. Minutes later, a bunch of Lucan family servants are lying on the floor. After the two open a door and pull the blanket off the bed, and they realize nobody is there. The man is totally shocked, and at that very moment, Simon says he doesn't recall inviting any guests. The kid, looking completely calm, sits on the windowsill and says that the scent of sleeping incense is all over the mansion. Without an antidote, he would have passed out. Anyway, wants to know why dark elves from the forest are here. Without wasting a second, the two intruders try to flee, but Simon tells them not to even try using that claw ability, warns them not to use that claw skill again. The elf immediately realizes it's dark magic, and with no other choice, they draw their weapons. Simon is impressed, saying it has been a long time since anyone blocked his attack. These guys are actually pretty strong. One elf admits it has been a while since someone actually blocked him. They seem pretty tough. As one elf charges at him, the young man prepares for combat. Notes they chose the wrong enemy. When it comes to dark elves, he has already fought more than his fair share. Out of nowhere, a wolf-shaped golem appears and grabs an elf. Man, that little creature is definitely not normal. Simon tells them not to underestimate it. That battle golem is packed with high-quality magic stones. Anyway, he wants to know who sent them. There is no way the proud elven race would ever ally with the Emperor. One of the elves snaps back, and Simon wonders if they are rebels. Says they might be part of the opposition faction. And at that exact moment, they toss a flash bomb. They use the opening to escape, and Simon says he let them go because he didn't sense any real bloodlust. Since he is their target, they'll be back soon anyway. This is the first time he has seen an elf lately. He used to see them all the time. He wonders if that guy is still alive. The scene shifts to a new place where someone calls a guy wearing glasses Lord. Aranesis, another elf, appears and mentions how cold the wind is, asking to go inside already. However, Aaron says he's perfectly fine and has no choice, because this is the best spot to observe the stars. Changing the subject, he says he has something important to tell her. Handing her a small, mysterious wooden box, he asks her to open it. At that very moment, the girl is shocked to realize that it is a magic staff. The old man mentions this as the absolute divine staff. They say the supreme god used it to defeat the demon god and create the world. It is basically a legendary artifact. Erwin says the supreme god used it to defeat the demon god and create the world, making it a legendary artifact. Erwin admits she thought it was a fairy tale and never imagined it actually existed. Arnie says she knows it's as powerful as the branches of the world tree. If misused, the danger is beyond imagination, which is why he kept it hidden until now. For that reason, she needs to take it and head south. A star lost long ago has reappeared, and this continent will soon fall into chaos once again. Because of the war, the elves were cut off from the spirit realm, and can no longer summon the spirits they bonded with. At this rate, they won't survive the coming storm. They need the power of the world tree. If they can get the key of dimensions, known as the tear of the earth, they can reopen the sealed passage between the worlds. Luckily, he realized the power was sent down south. Hearing this, Owen asks the old man why he chose her specifically out of everyone else. The old man says the reason is actually pretty obvious. She is his most trusted successor, though she claims she made it clear she didn't want to be a but he says that's pointless since he already chose her. He ignores her refusal. There is no other way since the fate of their species is at stake now. Accepting the dangerous mission, she promises to return with whatever he needs. The girl finally leaves while Arenes keeps staring ahead. Just then, my friend, trouble arrives. Arenes notes how calmly the guy was waiting and suggests he leave. The hooded man is shocked, saying nobody has ever seen through his camouflage before. He admits he was only watching because the conversation was actually starting to get interesting. He asks if Arenes really plans to fight without spirit magic. Arenes replies that after 500 years, he must have forgotten his pathetic loss. He wonders how the guy could return to this place without any fear after such a crushing defeat. 5 centuries ago, as the battle starts, the stranger demands back what was stolen, asking about the Atlas project. They stare each other down. Arenes wonders why he would look for that here. The young man tells him not to play down. He knows Darkmoon is preparing for war with the Empire and building a giant army. Clearly, Arenes is trying to build a new hero-class giant using stolen designs in Veritas deck. However, old man calls it nonsense, saying he left the front lines long ago. The guy warns that he will use brute force if necessary. Arenes blocks a massive barrage of attacks. The stranger admits his defense is excellent, but claims it won't last much longer since it is already starting to crack. But the old man is not giving up. He starts casting a powerful enchantment right there. Magic begins to envelop the whole area. The hooded man is shocked. It is incredible that he can cast high-level elemental magic without a spirit. Even so, he claims even Arenes is powerless before time. Noting he once stood beside the legendary Simon, Arenes snaps back, saying the man used forbidden sorcery out of fear and is still too arrogant. He warns him he won't escape the wrath of Lord Elksol. The guy scoffs, saying divine judgment might not even be real. To end the talk, he creates a magical barrier. Arphenis does the same. Then, a massive bolt of lightning crashes down from the sky. The hooded man is surprised the old man recovered so quickly after his memories were tampered with. He realizes Arenes is not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, Arenes says the boy is way too arrogant for his age. He asks him if he already forgot how he lost in the past. Suddenly a giant monster appears. Just like that, the guy is defeated, giving the win to Arenes. He wonders if the man escaped. It turns out his name is Arson, and unlike Arenes, he has grown even more powerful. He doubts he can stop him alone now. Either way, the final war is beginning. We return to Lacan territory, where the protagonist finally looks decent in his new clothes. A soldier opens the door and the kid walks in. Down a long corridor, he announces his arrival. Simon of House Lacan kneels immediately, greeting the emperor. He is in the kingdom of an old man who has been waiting for him. There is an awkward silence. The king is unimpressed. He can tell the boy is a mid-level swordsman with third circle magic. Then he speaks about the boy's long journey. He summoned him to praise his victory in the war and grant him a formal title. He must now accept his noble duties with pride. Simon, observing the room, realizes the imperial family is still wary of House Lacan. They ignored the house while it was collapsing. But this win changed things. The king mentions a stalemate with the Republic. Their recent movements are suspicious, so Simon must go to Fort Tolrud as the Empire's right hand. Phillips is shocked by the location and asks the king to reconsider, since that is basically a death sentence. But Simon accepts the offer with a single condition. The king asks what he wants. Phillips feels uneasy. He asks if Simon knows what kind of place that really is. Every commander there died within a month. It has been leaderless for 3 years because it is so infamous. Sending him there is like treating him as a mortal enemy. The king gets furious, asking Phillips what he just said. At that very moment, Simon realizes the old man has an incredible presence. If he had let his guard down for a second, his own will would have been completely overwhelmed. Soon after, the king asks if he really dares to set a condition for the emperor. The boy replies very naturally that he is doing exactly that. To carry out the order, the condition must be met. The kid is really putting himself on the line here. They stare each other down. Phillips watches, worried that the boy is taking things too far. The king calls his arrogance boundless. If he cannot give a good reason, he will pay for mocking the emperor. Simon knows the fortress is a dangerous front line. Most nobles avoid taking command there for that exact reason. That is precisely why he wants to manage the place personally. He tells the confused king that his goal is to grow his military power by increasing his influence under the Lacan banner. He can lead his men more easily and prove his worth with actual results on the battlefield. The king notes the land is just a remote fortress and asks if that is his only condition. Simon says it might be ordinary now, but it's a strategic point between the Volga Republic and Nemesis. It could become a major transportation hub once the war ends. This conflict holds many possibilities, which is why he wants Fort Tol Rud. The king finds the situation annoying, but figures the boy will just die at the fortress anyway. Accepting the offer, he grants him the land, along with his noble title. Simon thanks him, saying that he will definitely live up to the emperor's expectations. Everything is settled. The kid is now the commander of Fort Tol Rud and owns the territory. On top of that, he is formally named V. While later the scene shifts to another location. Two giants fight. One sword is thrown far away. Phillips admits defeat, saying the boy's growth rate is truly unbelievable. The other giants belong to our protagonist, who was feeling pretty smug about beating Phillips. Phillips asks if that was seriously his first time piloting a giant mech. Rookies usually can't even stand up straight the first time, yet here he is, showing off insane talent. Mastering the controls and winning the duels so fast shows he's incredibly gifted at this stuff. Simon just shrugs, giving all the credit to his instructor's top-tier teaching skills. Checking the machine, Simon thinks he's lucky the mana circuit structure is basically identical to the golems he designed before. It is a massive relief because these giants are the most powerful weapons in their entire arsenal. Even with his elite magic, Simon knows he would struggle to face one of these things alone. They are absolute powerhouses, but at least they're finally making some real, tangible progress. Samuel pipes up, eager to keep moving and head out right now. Without wasting a second, he asks to go inspect the territory. The scene cuts to a village where a bold guy from before spots our protagonist and asks how the reconstruction is going. The old man reports that the damage from Count Monarch's army is almost fixed, and new housing is nearly done. Everything is moving fast thanks to the steady flow of workers and supplies. Plus, the merchant guild Simon mentioned is finally coming together. Honestly, the old man was worried about finding jobs for all those refugees, but things worked out way better than he expected. Watching them work, Simon realizes that turning Lamer into a free city was a genius move. It gave them the perfect spot to set up their own independent trade guild without any royal interference or local politics slowing them down. This way, they can focus on growth. Since the former kingdom of Olga had such poor soil, its people became experts in trade and finance to survive. They have the brains for business, and now they finally have the opportunity. Give them a place like Lama and they will turn it into a gold mine in no time. Simon is excited to see the finished city. The old man then asks if he plans to inspect the mage tower before he leaves, but Simon just shakes his head. He says it is fine since he left Lord Muti in charge of all the important technical details. A skilled pilot is useless without a giant to control, so he is prioritizing production for future battles. He is already preparing for the massive wars on the horizon, using stolen books from the Veritas Academy and those Atlas blueprints. He is building a new magic tower to develop the next generation of mechs. He plans to create a new hero-class giant with that tech. He can't wait to see the final result. By the time he gets back, this place will look completely different. Then he remembers that the tower doesn't even have a name yet. It is not strictly necessary, but he already has a name picked out. Just then, Raina walks up and asks if he is finished working for the day. She has been waiting to give him a parting gift before he heads out. She holds out a small stone, explaining that it is a fragment of a royal treasure passed down through her family. Legend says it has the power to keep its owner safe from harm. Simon is stunned she would give him something so valuable. Raina explains she heard the emperor summoned him and just wanted him to come home in one piece. Hearing her worry makes the big guy blush. He is clearly touched by the gesture and does not want to turn down such a meaningful gift from her. He is not about to say no to her, right? He promises to return safely and give it back to her when he does. A pinky promise between them for the future. Later that night, Simon tries to sneak out quietly under the cover of darkness. Hans catches him saying there's no need for the secret exit. But Simon knows everyone is busy and didn't want a big, annoying farewell ceremony. He tells Hans to look after the territory while he is gone. Hans promises to do his absolute best, and Simon tells him not to overwork himself, since he is not a young guy anymore. Just as they are saying their final goodbyes, a loud voice suddenly calls out. Someone shouts Simon's name, and man, you will never guess who. It is Phillips, fully geared up and ready to go. He asks if Simon really thought he'd leave him behind. He swore to be the sword that protects him no matter what happens. That means staying by his side, so he's coming along for the ride too. Simon just listens to him rant in silence for a bit, simply smiles.